Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 479.
Are we going to need to change our podcast intro to like Samui Smashbox or anything due to your recent investments?
I could go with Sawadi. Just like, hi, how you doing?
You can do whatever you want. I'm not gonna know. But
yeah, there's a lot of things.
Like a lot of things.
I've only picked up a few words in the last few years, but I'm going to be making a much more conscious effort to jump into some more Thai language. I mean, now that I clearly have Estonian all locked down,
you've got it.
That is,
you're a man of
nailed.
Many words in different languages. Not many languages, but many words in different languages.
Only the easier ones.
I did see a post that you had made that Kristen Tatar commented on. Kristen Tatar. That you were on the
Tour Life.
Yeah. I want to say Disc Golf Tour. The Tour Life podcast with Brody and Yuli, and they were laughing at or mocking. Maybe I didn't get a chance to your pronunciation.
They chuckled at my effort.
Oh, at your effort.
I feel like as if they were mildly or overtly dismissive.
Sure.
Of my effort, because it was queued up by Brody just simply asking, how do you pronounce for 2024? How will you be pronouncing the number one player in the world? And I thought about it for a moment.
I would have said Heimberg. Just kidding.
No, he said FPO player in the world.
Okay.
And I said Kristen Tatar. And they chuckled. They gave a hearty laugh. And said, that's what you're going with, huh? I said, well, I probably won't to that full extent, but that is, as I've said before, it's not perfect, but it is closer than Kristen Tatar.
Mm-hmm.
Much closer. And who in the world clapped back, or who responded?
It wasn't a clap back.
It wasn't. No, that's why I say who responded? The Queen herself.
Queen Elizabeth? Queen?
No.
Oh.
Kristen.
Yeah, I knew that. I saw the comment. Yeah, Kristen Tatar commented, said it's as close as she's heard
from any American.
From any American. So that's phenomenal, Terry.
I'm going to take that.
We're all still going to laugh at you. We're all still going to make fun of you. And,
that's fine. And I am not claiming it's perfect, but it is definitely closer to what she has said and to what others in Estonia have told me, as opposed to how we've all been doing it incorrect for the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Well,
myself included, of course.
I will continue
I'm not on some high horse here thinking like, oh, I've been doing it right all along. Clearly I have not. But once I learned that we were doing it incorrectly, I have made a more conscious decision to at least attempt to get it correct.
And I'm going to work on it myself. I'm not going to be good. I know that. I will forget.
It's a tough habit to break.
It is.
Right off the bat, I'll say that.
So every time I say it, I'm going to have to slow down and, whatever. So anyway, glad to hear it. If you want to hear more about Terry, if you don't get enough of him on this podcast, you can go to the Tour Life podcast. He has a guest last week. And yeah, that's
there's kind of a bigger story to my internet and the challenge there.
I saw your video was really crap quality.
Why? As someone said, I need some tech support there. I pay for above average internet at my house.
Did it look bad to you, or did they blow you up, like try to zoom you in or something?
I wasn't really paying attention because I was in using OBS in a Ninja room and all this other stuff that I'm more familiar with using vMix clearly, which is what we use.
They use
and
OBS.
I'm guessing it was largely my connection, maybe, or it could have been some of the settings. We know we can mess with all of that, but yeah, clearly my image quality looked terrible, and I can't blame them, because then I turn around and say, well, I know I had a buffering issue just today when I went live on something for a little while.
Someone else did say, though, that YouTube Live in general was having buffering issues, so maybe there was something to be said there.
Certainly some frustrations there, but
I'm sure.
Yes. They asked me all the questions and then got them all cut up, just like a podcast can do, and I answered a number of things, and it seems as if, I'm going to say this, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I don't know if this needs to be said, but I'll say it anyway. Johnny and I we host this podcast. We're more than happy, and we've both joined various podcasts for lots of different reasons.
I've joined some fantasy disc golf podcasts in the past. We've talked to the PDGA in the past. We've talked to other podcasts.
Yeah. So if there's ever anything, and again, I think some people just assume because you host one, you may or may not be interested and or privy to being on others. If you want one or either of us,
we're here.
We're here, or both. That absolutely, yes. We've both been. Usually, it's funny enough. It's often been on different ones because we have very different angles and takes.
Yes.
And as much as we're here every Tuesday, we're not entirely united and joined at the hip. So, if anyone is ever in need of us, now I'm not begging you people, but if you are ever in need of having a guest, one or both of us would be more than obliging. So I want to put that out there because I think some people maybe just assume when you host something, you wouldn't necessarily want to be on another one.
Maybe there's some possible thoughts about competition. Maybe that's the reason. Why would they go on another podcast when they host their own? If they want to get their viewpoints out, then by all means, they'll just say it on their podcast, which in general is true, but there is no real competition in that. I think a lot of people, if they listen to podcasts, they maybe listen to multiple ones, maybe they've got their favorites. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing having somebody else throw you questions as opposed to you always having to kind of come up with things on your own. And that people come at you with different perspectives and viewpoints than maybe what we bring to the table.
Yeah. Now, let me also follow all that up and say there's apparently a podcast that gives away awards. One of those awards is predicated upon length of podcast, as in longest podcast award. And they're not talking...
Is this disc golf specific?
Yes. And they are not talking in terms of longevity, as we are 479 episodes into our podcast.
No one touches us
pushing,
in the disc golf world.
Pushing what will soon be, in just a few days, will soon be 9 full years. So they're not talking about the overall longevity. They're talking about length of podcasts. And I have to make sure you're aware of this.
Well,
we at SmashBoxx were not awarded the longest podcast award.
Well, I mean, I could see, depending on are you looking at average length? So, for instance, if you were to, if this was if you look at a year and SmashBoxx's podcast on average is 3 hours, usually from 9 to midnight, about is what we do. Okay, that's fine. Was there a podcast maybe that went 5 hours long? I know sometimes the Oakleys have their charity, and I don't know if they put it out as a podcast. This year. Yep. They are, and shout out to the Oakleys for doing that. But is it kind of average length? Because then also, if you break down, if you just look at us as a podcast, sometimes our podcasts are only quote unquote 2 hours because the after show is an hour. So it really depends on how you can break this down. Is it amount of weekly content given out? Because Foundation has a multiple podcasts they put out every week. So is that considered kind of one network? I don't know, Terry. How did we not win?
I don't know, but apparently we didn't win longest podcast.
Well, that's probably just wrong.
It's adorable. It's adorable. The number one, and the only reason why this sticks with me is because I feel like the number one criticism, or one of the loudest criticisms of our podcast from day one, has been that our show runs long. It's just been our style. So there's podcast awards that somehow are rewarding. I don't know why you would, but they're awarding or rewarding somebody for having the longest podcast, which we're notorious for.
Maybe, they're saying, if it was a Foundation one, maybe it was just their internal awards that they give to their one of 12 different podcasts they offer.
I don't know. And let me be very clear. I'm not upset about this. It does make anyone maybe second guess any semblance of validity when you give it to one of your own podcast network people that clearly don't run longer podcasts than we. Anyway, that's cute.
It is. What a cute award.
The award tonight that I'm giving out is Tuesday Night Podcast for co-hosts that are wearing blue shirts. Oh, what the hell do you know? Here we are.
We win.
Yes. Let me get a trophy made up. Anyway, so yes, good for all of those involved.
Let's move on, Terry, and talk about a little bit of the news that we heard this past week. We're going to start with something that was dropped last Thursday. It is technically the 2024 complete schedule was released, and this is the PDGA schedule.
My events aren't on there yet. I'm going to probably run 1 or 2 or 3 events next year.
Your events are not elite, majors, or A tiers.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, you could maybe make them that way, but it might be a little
in my
late
head
now.
They will be.
What we're seeing next year is going to be 11 PDGA majors, and that includes Pro, Masters, Juniors, AMP. So that's all of those.
Okay.
The 23 DGPT Elite Series events, which are 5 of them are European, 14 NADGT A tiers. That's the National Amateur, which was just streamed on Disc Golf Network this past weekend. 14 DGMT, and that's a new designation.
What?
For the, I guess, official designation for the PDGA, in that it wasn't necessarily a recognized tour previously, but that's the Disc Golf Masters Tour. That's the Callie McMoran. It is now an official PDGA tour, as I'm going to throw it in quotes. There's 14 of those next year.
Yeah, 14 A tiers. Go on.
14 A tiers.
Yep.
And 2 DGMT in Canada. Now, they're not designated as A tiers, but they do say 2 in Canada. So those could be maybe B tiers, but they are designated as DGMT events. 183 other A tiers in the U.S., and I'm going to rattle them all off now.
Yes.
No, I'm not. And 10 A tiers in Canada. Now, the only A tier that we're really going to talk about is the Las Vegas Challenge, because that was an event that was scheduled to be at the beginning of the tour as a DGPT event. Yada, yada, yada. Not a DGPT event. They ended up moving to May 9th through the 12th. And that is more or less the weekend. I believe that is the weekend after the DDO.
Dynamic Disc Open. Get it right.
I said DDO. I didn't say like
GBO. No,
I didn't say GBO or anything like that. So we're
okay. I mean, I'm just trying to stay on the up and up here.
We're good there, Tear Bear. We're good. Don't you worry. And then I think it's 2 weeks before the next elite event, which is maybe the Portland Open. I thought it was the.
No, I think it's OTB, right?
I thought it was OTB as well, but I didn't see that. I was just scanning. Oh, there it is. Yep, OTB.
Yeah,
OTB Open.
It's the week in between those
correct.
two.
You're right. I missed it when I scrolled down a little bit. So, pros will have an opportunity now to go play Vegas if they choose. I think there are some other A tiers that are on this particular weekend that could be, in theory, on the way. The 303 in Colorado.
Copenhagen. You want to go to Denmark?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little out of the way, but you know, the Lexington Open in Kentucky, which is kind of the other way.
Yeah.
The Crosstown Throwdown in Belton, Texas. You're taking a longer loop there if you go with that.
Okay, not necessarily on the way.
So not necessarily on the way. But there is the Norman Pro-Am as well in Norman, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And that is an A tier the weekend before. So those are the options. I think we're going to see pros kind of maybe pick and choose the events that they like if they want to play an A tier.
Yeah, if any. I mean,
correct. If that's what I'm saying. If they want to play an A tier, some pros might just, as we've seen, someone like Calvin. I don't see Calvin probably playing any of these. No. He's the type that's just going to take the weekend off, head over to OTB, assuming he's going to OTB. I would make the assumption he is, but and do that. But now they do have an opportunity to kind of hit these things along the way. It's in a good spot for travel. I think it'll be much better attended than if it had stayed at the beginning of the season.
Certainly. And being in Las Vegas just a week and a half ago, that was very much, at that point, it was unknown. I had heard the rumblings of applying for the date in which they were ultimately granted. Otherwise, I think their backup or original plan was going to be intact with going on that same weekend in February that they originally slated for. And now they've been granted what was their first choice in being that weekend. I guess that's just the question of the day, right? Is if any, will they stop there? Will they stop anywhere else? Will they be looking forward to just having that flat out that week off and then making that long trip across the country? The one piece, and this is only because I haven't talked to the other A tiers, the one thing I can say is I know because it's the 25th anniversary of the Las Vegas Challenge, and because I know of the impassioned people that I've been surrounded by in being in the Las Vegas area just a few weeks ago, they've made it very clear that they're going to try to still blow this event out of the water as best as they possibly can. They're going to try and host an incredible event. They've got a ton of support. Innova is their presenting sponsor. They're essentially treating it just the same. It's just now going to be on a different weekend.
Great.
And so if you're a fan of the event, of the courses, of the time, of the area, you're likely not going to get that 35 and 45 mile an hour winds and possible 30 degrees. I don't know how warm it is quite yet in May. I didn't go that far as to look it up.
It's probably warm.
I'm guessing it's starting to get a little bit warmer come Mother's Day weekend. But strategically and geographically, or those go hand in hand here, it is going to make sense if people want to stop and play there. I'll also be the first to admit, I don't know if it's going to be a 3 or a 4 round event. I'm going to guess. I'm just guessing. And I think if they want any chance of getting some of these people, they would have to make it just 3 rounds. But I can't speak. Maybe it's even listed right there in the overall dates. I can't speak for certain what it's going to be. But that would just be my guess, is that it would be the 3 round event that you often see with an A tier. So best of luck to them. You know, there are clearly a number of these A tiers that have had that conversation about what do we do now if we were vying to be on the Pro Tour as an Elite Series, or in that process, or that thought process, we were vying by being a silver event in these last year or 2 or 3 or whatever it's been. Now some of those events might be thinking, man, we've been ramping up, and there's a little bit of a letdown in terms of a distinction that they're going to be, quote unquote, just an A tier. And I use that in air quotes. Hopefully some of them want to carry that momentum and move forward. And we talked about this in the past. Could some of those events potentially, in a loose, semi-loose way, band together to create a series distinction of their own?
Sure.
Quite possibly, you know, and there's a lot of different names and or things that could be associated with that. So I guess we'll see. But for now, like you said, Las Vegas Challenge 25th anniversary happening on Mother's Day weekend, which is always a flip of a coin in the first place, right? Anytime you're talking about Mother's Day, Father's Day, any of our holiday weekends, there's always some flip of a coin as to the success rate of that. You know, so for some people, they're like, heck yeah, that's great. And it's going to work out really well with their family dynamic. And other families might be like, yeah, no way. You're not going anywhere. Here's your obligations and everything in between. We know those can vary from household to household. So looking forward to it. I will say the final note on that then too, with all the conversations they had and treating it like it's the big event that they've built it into being. I was also informed or I guess privy to the idea that they want to have a ton of coverage and you know, have all of the standard, I don't want to say standard hoopla, but have bells and whistles and things of that nature, including coverage. Now, it's not going to be live coverage that I know of, but I think they're going to do their best to have as much post-production coverage as possible. So
for the right price, we can do live coverage, Terry. For the right price. That's a big price, by the way.
Speaking of which, for the right price, yeah, we got to pay for things like a new set of stickers, which Johnny hasn't even seen yet.
I have not seen these
stickers.
So
when you're getting some Patreon stuff, and when we get around to updating some more stuff on the website, we now have some pretty sweet SmashBoxx stickers, some die-cut ones. And Johnny...
Oh, I've not seen these. Oh, look at that.
These turned out pretty nice.
Wow.
They're still fresh in packaging. We also have some SmashBoxxTV. Oh, nice 1 by 8 inch stickers in the Mario font. Those turned out pretty well.
Themed out. Yeah, you must have got those. Did you get
Just
that
got them in a couple days ago.
Yeah. Get that from our friend down in Illinois?
No, there's they couldn't do those types of stickers, so different solution there.
All right.
But anyway, so if you're watching, we've got a couple new fresh SmashBoxxTV stickers that will certainly get included for Patreon and other purchases. Yes, Webb says he needs a sticker. We'll get you some of that. And Hannah Macbeth says you need a sticker. All right. Well, what we need to stick to, we got some more action.
A little more news. Today, there was an announcement that dropped. 4 more years is what I heard. The Matty O announcement that he has signed a contract extension with Westside for 4 additional years. Now, there was no other details given.
No.
Just 4 additional years. It looked like there were some new discs that were dropping to celebrate, or at least
I think there's a sale on.
Or,
I think there was more so a sale on some discs, but go on. Yep.
And it came in the form of I call a quirky video.
Okay.
Some people liked it. Some people didn't. There was some. For those of you that haven't seen the video,
can we play it? I have permission to play it if I've talked to them. So if you want to take a minute to find it,
I could
and produce or show it up for anyone that somehow hasn't seen it. I think that'd be kind of cool.
I do actually probably have access to it. Probably.
So Johnny will get his hands on it. But yeah, and I'll pick it up from there as Johnny's. Is it that easy for you?
It's
got it?
That easy for me, Terry Miller.
All right,
now I don't know if we're gonna have audio on this.
Well, that would be crucial.
So
we're going to see if Johnny V is going to try and make it work so that we can show you this video, which dropped earlier today. Like you said, some mixed reaction to it. Not necessarily the messaging, but some people...
The subtle messaging, I guess
I mean, messaging of Matty O is not the problem. It's really how it came about. So Johnny's going to start it from the start here.
Why are we talking about this? It's not even a question. 4 more years, it's just a given.
Perspective. What kind of pressure does this put on Westside?
We all know that disc golf has some of the most passionate, vocal fans of any sport out there. These people that are out there in the streets, they are not joking around.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard voice after voice. How could we, in good conscience, ignore the demands of the people? All in favor? Aye. And all opposed? Very well then. On behalf of Team Westside and the voice of the people, I hereby declare 4 more years!
Man, you ain't got to threaten me with a good time. Let's give him hell.
Ah, 10% off all Westside discs today and through Friday. Link is in the description for the video. So, what we have is, for those of you that maybe are just listening in audio format, you've probably already watched it, but the video starts out with crowds, some masked people chanting, cheering, whatever you want to call it, for 4 more years. There's no reference as to what it is particularly about until you get to a room with a bunch of, well, what we know as DD guys, but, you know, ultimately acting.
Judicial looking.
Boardroom
/ judicial looking.
Cabal, maybe secretive kind of thing.
Don't open any can of worms here, Johnny.
I am repeating what I've heard from other people.
Okay.
And at that point, the tone changes, the music changes. Matty O, they unmask Matty O, and basically...
And his sunglasses come flying off, which was a nice touch.
That was a nice touch. The sunglasses did come flying off. And they more or less announce a 4-year contract. And the what I've heard from people, and me personally, it's a quirky video that I don't read too much into. I know some people maybe, I can understand if you don't like it, that's fine. Because it does bring up maybe thoughts of January 6th. It maybe brings up thoughts of right now, particularly there is some hostage situations going on over in the Middle East. These are all things that, don't necessarily... I can understand if you don't like it. Me, personally, I kind of overlook that. It's just a quirky video. Matty's a quirky guy. It is kind of what it is to me. And some people, if it missed the mark with some people, that's fine. Like, everyone, to each their own.
Yeah, it's obviously one of those classic scenarios of everyone can read into it as much as they want. And if you feel it's excessive, I can understand where you're coming from. There's clearly a tie that it was released today. Today being
election day.
On an election day, that obviously all of this has a tie to it. Now, some can say that tie was too much for them. I get that. As maybe as unbelievable as this sounds, even when I saw an early rough cut and I was asked to be involved with it, I didn't go all the way into dive nearly as deep as what others have in terms of the response. I initially saw it. I was asked of what my role could be. I obliged. I said I'd be willing to do it. They were willing, in full disclosure, they were willing to compensate. Not that was my driving force, but they were willing to compensate in terms of our roles and the acting. Oh man, do I have to register with the Actors Guild now? Anyway,
wait, were they on strike? They're on strike right now.
No, you're not now we're digging. Now
you're not a SAG actor. You don't have to worry.
I'm just a sad actor. So clearly I understood some connection, but I didn't go as deep as what others have associated with. And call that naivete on my part,
sure,
or just like recognizing it, but also not letting it get too deep. Either way, what I can say is clearly the people that put it together are passionate about disc golf, are trying to do a professional job, and are not trying to invoke a bigger picture of
one of
worldly
the things,
unrest.
Of course,
that is not. No, and as somebody said on the board, I think might have been you, Dustin, that just said it a moment ago. I liked your wording where you said, great video. I just think the current landscape is unfortunate timing. That might be a great way to summarize it.
Couple of things from my side. I'm more of a live and let live kind of guy. If you're not out to purposefully offend somebody, odds are you didn't mean it. And if someone takes offense to it, there's not much you can do. Someone can find offense and everything. I would have liked it better if instead of kind of the room with all the guys in sunglasses, if that had been a little bit better themed towards West Side style of discs, maybe a Viking kind of theme.
Northmen or Boatmen.
Correct.
Queen and
But I also know that that's probably a lot bigger production value, getting those type of costumes versus everybody's wearing a suit jacket and some sunglasses. Sure. So I'm not here to, second guess what it is.
You're also not a script writer or a set designer.
No, and plus
none of us are.
I have been stuck watching the TV series Vikings that my wife has been watching on Netflix. So it's been sitting in the background. But yeah, it's, to me, I like it partially because at the very end, it did its job in that it put a little smile on my face. I chuckled at it. Oh, good. And I move on.
You didn't know where it was going when it opened.
Clearly not. The other thing that I liked about it was that it was different than what we have seen from other announcements. It's not your standard kind of just boring announcement. It kind of, and not necessarily in theme, but I really like as well at the Mason Ford one we saw last year. The black and white, Texas themed.
Sure.
That, to me, when you put a lot of production value into those things, it is, to me, it shows a dedication to a player. And I'm very happy that Mattio's getting 4 more years with Westside, which is ultimately what the whole story should be about in the end. That Matty's going to be on tour for 4 years minimum and supported by a company. Mattio's beloved. So that's we can look forward to 4 more years of, Roll Tide.
Yeah. And that's going to push him roughly into MP40, not to entirely call him out, but I can
because he was on the video with Nate Dawes at Worlds.
Well, that too, but I was just thinking about when I saw him and filmed him earlier this year, and it was at the Open at Tallahassee, and we were walking down a fairway and somehow having this conversation about age and whatnot. And it was at that time, I think he said he was 36 or 37. And so when I'm thinking about 4 more years, that's going to roughly push him right into that age-protected-ish time frame, which is, I think of a fellow trilogy player in Johnny McRae, who's, as we've said, an ageless wonder. So that really means nothing. Let's think about it just for 1 second, speculate how much less of a player or worse or degraded will Matty O's game be 4 years from now? If you had to guess, like, let's say in percentage of 1 to 100%, he's at 100% now.
3 to 5% at most, because
that's what I agree. If even that.
And I say that because Matty O doesn't throw with a ton of velocity and force. He throws far, but his style isn't like I will say like an Eagle, who I think we're still not sure if Eagles, the force at which he throws is maintainable for 30 years. You know, and I'm not saying, because I know Eagles' injury right now really had nothing to do with how he throws. He said he was dinking around with some dumb 360 thing, and it just messed up his shoulder. So I don't want to equate his throwing style to his current injury, but I'm looking at the long run, and with the fierceness that he throws, I don't know what his lifespan is as far as that type of distance. Matty O is a much different type of form. It doesn't have that, as unique as it is. It doesn't have that type of velocity and force coming at you. So I think that much like Johnny McRae, we can see the player maintain longer. You know, I don't know, like looking at Kelvin, I think Kelvin's a great example. I don't know if Kelvin can keep up what he's doing into his 30s and probably into his 30s, but into his 40s beyond. I mean, look at the weird way he puts his ankle and his foot and just how he throws.
Yeah, the sheer velocity, power, thrust, all of those things that go into his
correct.
You know,
the thing I'm worried,
exploding through the power pocket.
The thing I'm worried most about is just Matty O's sunglasses budget.
Well,
I mean, 4 years of throwing,
clearly you would think he would go like the double G route by now, and he'd get like the
no, then it's not Matty O.
Yeah, get the little I don't know what are those called? That go on your sunglasses that kind of then keep them around your neck. Those were like a thing for a little while.
The nerd strap.
David Wiggins, Double G, both sporting those. Again, it's clearly a power thrower problem to have. I don't have to worry about my glasses going anywhere when I'm throwing.
I do, but my glasses right now are being held together literally by a staple. So the screw fell out, so I stuck a staple.
You're talking about nerds, what?
Yeah. The screw fell out of my glasses like a month ago, and so I went to the eyeglasses store and they couldn't find a screw that fit. So I was like, well, you know what? Whatever. And I just took a staple, I put it through the hole and bent it. So my glasses are being held together by a staple. I did just have an eye appointment, and I'm going to order a new pair of glasses in the next couple of days.
Classy glasses.
After a month.
Okay. So at any rate, Matty O, congrats. I'm going to now bust his balls a little and say, reply to my text, my phone call. Apparently,
according to Dust, who is a local in that area, Matty O is in vacay mode. And he's not even responding to locals. He's not responding to anybody. It's very difficult to get a hold of Matty O.
You sign a 4-year deal. You
probably
some of the biggest news, if not the biggest news of the day in the disc golf world.
And it's on a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
Should be announcing.
So yes, I will call him out. I did reach out to him via text and didn't hear from him. Talked to his manager, his team manager. We got in contact with his agent, all of the above to get Matty O here to have a conversation tonight, and no Matty O. So you can, if there's finally something to be mad at Matty O for, it's not joining us tonight. All right, so I'll say that much.
Stanman says over or under $200K a year. I'm going to go under. But I don't know. But
and for just a moment, let's put that in some perspective.
That we're asking that question.
No, not just that we're well, that it's that number. We can ask the question. That's fair. But it's that number. When you talk about his competitors week in and week out and who he is
competing with constantly.
Within a stroke or two, sometimes better, sometimes worse, whatever. He's clearly not winning as much as some of the other players. But you're talking about Ricky with a guaranteed $1 million. You're talking about Macbeth with a guaranteed $1 million. You're talking about Eagle, Simon. You're talking about all these players that we know are making way more than that. So the fact that you open, and I'm just using it as an example, you open with 200,000, and then we think about how that may stack up against his very formidable competitors that are right next to him. It kind of sounds crazy that you would think it would be way more. However, our landscape has changed so much in the last 2 or 3 years since some of these big deals have come about. And I don't think we're ever going to get the numbers. I don't think. Whatever happens with the likes of an Eagle McMahon staying with the Discmania or moving on or whatever and everything in between, I don't think we're going to know the numbers unless it's a really big blockbuster like lifetime deal that keeps him there or moves him. If it's a 1 or 2 year deal, I don't think we're going to know the details of it. And same with a Gannon Burr, if Gannon stays with Prodigy or he moves on. I don't know. It's wild. And I don't want to say, oh, you missed the boat. But 200 today sounds so low compared to not compared to 5 years ago, just 10 years ago.
Well, I just think
it sounds great. But
I
compared to 2 years ago, you're like,
Yeah, I think of the landscape and how the disc golf landscape has changed even in the past 2 years. And you're right. If this were 2 years ago, the thing about, and we've probably beat a dead horse with this in the past, to get those type of contracts, you need multiple things. You need to be probably close to a world champion. You need to be social media. You need to have to be selling discs. Like, you need to be pushing that product. And as great as Matty O is, and thankfully I don't know numbers, I don't know what type of influence he's having on Westside.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe a lot of it is incentive based. So if more Westside does sell, he gets a bigger cut. And I'm sure he's going to be making enough to tour pretty easily, hopefully put away a little into a retirement and sell some discs. That's what I care about. I hope Matty O's happy with it. That's what we can look for. But I don't know. It would be tough. I think you have to be, and I don't want to say a Worlds winner. You have to be a major winner, is what I'll say. Worlds might be a little exclusive.
Okay. Well, as of now, like we have this conversation every year, unless they go above and beyond to make the details overtly public, a lot of it's going to be second guessing, hearsay, rumor mill, all that other stuff as to what things may or may not pan out to do. As we said, the announcement today was the 4 years. The terms, the stipulations, performance bonuses, win bonuses, all those types of things, some consistency bonuses. Who knows what that actually means? We don't have those details. Maybe I'd be surprised. Maybe Matty could share all those things if he joined us tonight. But
yeah, Carney on the board says at 1045 he is a top 5 rated player in the world, and I agree. Like
that's kind of was my whole point. Like, you think about 200 and how low that sounds compared to his like I said, his closest competitors, and I know he is not taking down as many titles, but I'll be damned if he's not as loved as most of those people when it comes to fan favorites and things of that nature. But like you said, how many discs is he moving? That definitely makes a huge difference. If you're really well liked and loved, but you're not moving a lot of plastic, well, then you get looked at a little differently. I'm going to give Johnny a little, this is some on real-time stuff. We didn't think we were going to have necessarily a rep from the PDGA tonight, but it looks like we may have our marketing rep from the PDGA. So I'm going to work on a detail or two. If you're good with that, Johnny,
I'm good with whatever.
We just might have a little PDGA representation jump on here tonight, and I got to figure out how I remembered to do that. But yeah, regardless, that was kind of the not just the big news, but I think the fact that it's one of the earliest confirmed signings and sightings, whatever you want to call it, signings more so, but also just like a confirmed, like, hey, this guy's locked in. Here's the deal. Obviously, I know they must have shot that video a full week or two ago, and then some. In terms of getting that video shot, like I said, I saw it in a rough cut format, and then provided a little extra into it near the very end of it. So they've been working on it for a while, and needless to say, congrats. All right, so I need to Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud.
Nope,
we
that's
had
fine.
Seth Muncie on last week, so Seth would have the same link that I need to send over.
Yes, he would. All right, real quick, we'll talk about what happened this past weekend at the NADGT National Championships. We saw that, if you were watching live, the I always want to say MPO. The MA1, which is the top division at NADGT, was a blowout. Corbin Milczewski, I'm sure I messed that up, Corbin, and I apologize. I'm sure I will learn your name much better over the next over the next couple months and years. Corbin was the third highest rated player at the event, but he ended up finishing 21 under par. He bested Loren by 9 strokes, and he lost 2 in the final round. So he went into the final round, it looks like up by like 11 strokes or 12 strokes or something. I don't know. But either way, a crushing. He walked through the final round. Congratulations to Corbin. Like I said, second place was Loren. A tie for third between Jeffrey and Cooper. So congratulations, guys. Now, the FA1 division was a little bit more contested. Rebecca Minnick won this by 2 strokes. She had a 5-stroke lead going into the final round, but at one point, I don't want to say let it whittle down, but she had a slow round, and her competitors in Kimberly Dickerson and Emma Kudrick made a run at her and got her within 1. Finally, on hole 16, Rebecca hits a big putt, kind of puts it a little out of contention, and is able to walk in the final hole or two, and with a little less worry on her. But it did end up, when I started the weekend, I was wondering if I was going to watch it. I ended up not watching it, to be honest, because I looked at the 5-stroke lead going into the final round. I was like, all right, well, Rebecca's got this. Not that anything, we've seen so many crazy things happen, and busy weekends, but congratulations to these 2 players. Rebecca was the second highest player there behind Allison Latch, who took 7th place. Like I said, second place was Kim Dickerson, third place Emma Kudrick, and a tie for 4th place between Samantha Bonacci and Ashton Weberly. So there you go. There is your... there are a ton of divisions here. We're not going to go through them all. There's just really not a point. These congratulations to these NADGT champions, but really the ones that we're looking at are the ones that we might see in the future on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And, based on Corbin's 992 rating, he's right at that right mark where with a little bit of practice in another year or so, he might be one of those names that we see pop up on the top 10 leaderboards.
Yeah, and then wouldn't you look at roughly the round ratings for the week? Was there, I'm sure he averaged above that.
Yeah, he shot a 1044, 1036, and then his last 2 rounds were 983 and 987, which probably is why he's like a 992 rated player, because he has those hot rounds and then follows it up by, I'm going to throw it in quotes, not so hot rounds, but they're still in the upper 900s, as opposed to, when you or I shoot a not so hot round and they're in the lower 900s.
Yeah. So, congrats to them. And then also of note, certainly within the grand scope of the event and the finale for NADGT, just the fact it shows on the PDGA as 981 competitors. It was 990 or whatever when the weekend started, or just shy, 996 or 992, whatever it was. Nearly 1,000 competitors all landing and being there in Austin to partake in the event. Hopefully they were all treated to good time. I know that this event last year had some challenges. Any time you have 1,000 people that you're trying to overall,
someone's not going to be happy,
appease and to make the best week of their life, it's going to be difficult. Like that should be a starting point. And it sounds as if the little feedback I read in any capacity was good feedback. And it's just a matter of that entire tour growing, getting more reps in, and then, ultimately delivering at a higher standard and a higher level. And I'm sure it's going to continue to improve. But like I said, the little feedback I saw was very positive. And I know that they had some opportunities from the previous year, from the previous feedback I had seen. Also great to see, a number of our players that were down there in some capacity. I'm sure a lot of them were offering up, wares and discs and such. In terms of
Isaac,
the Fly Mart.
Alden, I think I saw down there. Isaac Robinson, Alden
And
Harris,
Ezra.
Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky, I think was down there at some point as well, and a number of other players.
Emerson, maybe? I know Emerson is in...
That would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know for
Being
sure
in
if
Texas.
Emerson was there, but he is out of Texas. So
yeah, so really cool to see. Congrats to all not only the people that make it there, the people that make that trip. Clearly, we talk about AM Nationals, we talk about U.S. Women's, we talk about AM and/or Junior Worlds. This is right there now becoming as part of that conversation as a culminating event at the end of the year, and hopefully, kind of seeing the fruits of your labor pay off.
It's really funny because we used to think when we were younger that whoever won AM World, it was a matter of waiting, like who's going to pick him up or her up, which team are they going to get on? It was a given, and I don't necessarily think that's the case so much anymore. I think you need to show a little bit more consistency in winning maybe AM Worlds, but also NADGT could do that, as well as the Michigan,
National Amateur Championships.
Yeah, the National Amateur Championships.
Well, half these people, you're not worried about who they're going to get sponsored by because they're already sponsored.
Most of them already,
they're already
just
on
whether or not
somebody's radar.
Whether or not they're going to keep the same sponsor then.
Yeah, that's certainly possible.
All right, we've got a...
Yeah, guess we can sidetrack. We're going to come back a little bit later, and we're going to we'll recap some Myrtle Beach action.
We got 2 more A tiers we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yep, we can talk about that. We've also got a wedding we could talk about. We'll talk about all that in a minute. But one of our voices that you sometimes hear chime in as we get ready for a broadcast, and then also deliver some news and helps oversee a number of the people and some of the communications that come from our friends at the PDGA. I think he's a marketing director or a name, title, something of that nature. Danny Voss joins us. Danny, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. How are y'all doing?
We're doing great.
Phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining. And full disclosure for everyone out there, I had reached out to Danny, said if he's got anything he wants to chat about. I know it's short notice. Danny obliging. And Danny, let's start here. What's your official title and who do you boss around?
So I'm the director of marketing for the PDGA. My direct team includes media manager, Matthew Rothstein, communications manager, Hayden Henry, brand manager, Grant Zellner, and then graphic design specialist, Caitlin Sapone, who did the whole PDGA rebrand in-house, like by her. Well, yeah, she did all the illustration by herself and stuff. And then digital marketing specialist, Jenny Greathouse Nance. So really good team. And those are the people that I boss around.
When those guys go out to dinner and have a few drinks, then that's when they start talking about Danny,
Yeah.
Well, so oddly enough, you'll never guess where the team is right now. We came together to do a marketing and media team summit. We do this once a year where we kind of come together and just face-to-face interact and do a lot of strategy planning for next year and stuff like that. So it's been a really good time, and we've been really connecting well and putting stuff together that's really good. And talking a little trash when we went and played. We're in Austin. We played Roy G. and talked plenty of smack. It was awesome. So
all right.
We're competitors at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then at no point does anybody get out the PDGA app and then make any complaints or report any bugs or any frustrations. You guys keep it all within your departments, I'm sure. Not that there are any bugs. We love you guys out there. So thank you for joining, and I want to follow up immediately. One of the things that I just got from your team, you and your team, a few days ago was essentially a really brief survey that I got. I want to say it was maybe on Instagram, and I completed it, and it essentially said hey, here's 7-ish or so, possibilities. How do you personally value or rank these things in terms of priority for you, meaning for me? How do I rank those? And then I was able to just shift them around with wherever I wanted to put them, and then it left kind of an open space to make a remark. We have literally almost 300,000 potential members. how in the world do you guys in any way funnel or channel feedback, constructive feedback? Like, where does that even begin?
Sure. So within the context of like that survey, we started deploying some of these like micro surveys. The one the week before that was just tell us what other interests you have. It was just one question. And then for this one, I'm trying to keep these like really, really short. And we're also not doing a lot of like really, really targeted communication right now. As much as we'd love to hear ourselves talk or like read our own words, I'm not really in the interest of like spamming the members. Not yet anyways. But so we just kind of discreetly put it in the newsletter or, somewhat discreetly, and then get the feedback that way. And I think that's resulting in like, hey, here's people with like really good feedback, and they just put it together. But I mean, honestly, in this context for this stuff, the responses are, fairly minimal because we're only putting in through that one channel right now. So it's easy to digest that data. It's not that complicated yet. When we expand it, then we'll definitely get into like when we're kind of cashing in on our other platforms like social media and stuff. It's going to be crazy. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, we're just using like a standard, like Survey Monkey thing, and it just sends you back all the information nice and color coded and everything. So it's really easy. It's just a little extra deployment that we're checking out right now. So where it really gets interesting is the feedback for things like the public comment for rules and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a ton of feedback, but people like Steve Gans and Michael Sullivan and the entire event support team and the operations and logistics guys, they look through that and monitor what comes in. And I mean, they were saying the article said how many responses there were. I don't recall what that number was off the top of my head, but it's significant. And then they collate it and make everything make sense and condense that feedback. And I think that's really good. I'm really glad that I'm not in charge of that project, to be honest.
Well, and I guess maybe one of my initial thoughts is, this micro survey you just put out, let's just say had 7 options for how you prioritize. What I worry, and maybe I'm crazy in this, but I worry you get 3,000 responses back, and all 7 out of 3,000 people, all 7 of those options are like a number one priority to somebody, and then somehow it just like it doesn't become crystal clear. Does that make sense? Like it's almost an even wash or relatively even across the board. And then I wonder, does that, I mean, obviously it tells you still an answer, but does that give you a clear and distinct answer at that point if there's no clear-cut winners?
Yeah, I mean, and where there aren't necessarily, we don't know what the action is going to be from this data yet. It might come into play a little bit with some prioritization and budgeting and things like that. I don't see right now any of like those particular answers getting cut or anything like that. So I don't think there's really like much of a concern. But but I will say if there was like a huge response, overwhelming response for more shot by shot coverage at, events where there's not, DGN as one of our partners, or we haven't already negotiated something. I mean, you've done this for us in the past couple of years since I've been here. So, that's where we could maybe identify some of those opportunities where it's like that this is what we might push a little bit more into and stuff like that. So I only see this right now as being what can we prioritize and add to, rather than what should we get rid of just yet. So,
okay.
No real cause for concern, I would say.
One of the more recent call outs, whether it's been through our broadcast and then also just from the PDGA's communication, is the call out for majors and the bidding process in terms of, people finding what it takes to have a bid and then submitting a qualified bid. Obviously there's a deadline to that. Where are we at? Where does that go from here? And then is that on the table for you guys right now? Are those some of the things that you and your team look at, or is that an entirely separate team?
Right. So a lot of that really goes through the operations and logistics team, as well as the majors committee. Matthew Rothstein on my team. He's a part of that committee, and I think that for us, we're going to do a little bit more to get a little bit more involved there. But the DGN has some influence there, because for the MPO and FPO majors where they're going to be operating, they kind of need to go test cell signal and stuff like that, and make sure that we're looking good. That's not quite the same priority at, say, like Tim Selinsky, but at the same time, that might be an opportunity for us to either work with DGN as kind of our trusted partner there, or do something else, and maybe based on the feedback from that survey we were just discussing, deploy more resources there. But yeah, right now with the majors process, so the bidding closed on November 1st. And so the timeline right now is to get everybody to read those bids, like the stakeholders that have to make sure that everything is in the right place and the bid looks good and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a busy year, because there were, for the majors that get bid, there were quite a few responses. I mean, only one event had 2 bids, which obviously isn't very many, but like the other ones were 4 for Selinsky, 4 for Masters Worlds, 4 for Junior Worlds, 4 for Am Worlds, and 7 for US Women's.
Dang,
which is super cool. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I can't recall all the different locations off the top of my head either right now. I mean, that's a lot to remember.
Of course.
And I'm very, very good at reading them. So, but yeah, I'm really excited about that process, and seeing where the event support team and the operations guys, decide to take us for those majors. It's going to be great. So we have tried to prioritize that too, the communications around the majors, because every tournament is pretty much run by a volunteer staff still, right? I mean, from Pro Worlds to your local league or C tier, and PDJ comes in and does a lot of support, but recognizing those really trusted partners and working with those local organizing committees is a big part of the sport, and the culture that has been around forever. And what we're trying to do, kind of partly through this summit, and we are bringing in the operations and logistics team tomorrow, is to figure out opportunities for where we can enhance these majors and make them even better, and provide even more support to the LOCs and stuff like that, because we really want to make those pinnacle events elite for everyone, from the MPO and FPO worlds to Junior Worlds to Tim Selinsky and all that stuff. And I think this year went really well for a lot of those majors, but there's just always room for improvement, and I think that's the ultimate goal for us right now.
Well, I feel as if, and kind of along those lines, I feel as if an area that maybe needs some distinction or clarification is, it's got to be tough when the PDGA is essentially in charge, or is there in a major support role, as opposed to some events largely are DGPT events, where the DGPT staff and DGN staff are kind of leading the charge, and the PDGA is, I don't want to call it backseat, but PDGA is there to support, versus some other events where the PDGA and the staff and the crew, along with the organizing committee, are essentially out in front, and there might be others that are supporting them. Do you know what I mean? And I think that could be a good area. I think that, let me rephrase this, that could be a confusion hiccup for some,
right?
Because you get to, we'll just say, a ruling, and we're on hole 14, and we're watching Ricky and Paul have a conversation about a ruling, and then fast forward, and then someone steps in and then helps, and then fast forward 2 weeks later, and it's Johnny McCrae and Patrick Brown playing MP50 at an event, but different people are helping with that ruling. And I think just maybe as being as clear as possible as to who's providing what roles might help with some of the viewers. Maybe not. Maybe that's not relevant. I don't know, but I could see some confusion by like kind of like who's running this show. If I'm just saying it kind of bluntly, like somebody saying that or wondering who's in charge here anyway, right? Do you guys find that to be a problem?
That is something that sort of came up today when we were discussing like our partnership with the Pro Tour, where like a theme has been, who owns this? And we're talking about newsletter to designing caddy books to our representation at the majors and Pro Tour stuff. So, and sometimes there are question marks, to be honest, and it's like, who should really be leading the charge on this? And I know that that's something that like Doug Bierkus is going to really dial in with his team on Thursday when they have their like kind of separate session. So again, I think that we've been doing well, especially with our partnership with the Pro Tour. And like for a little clarification for anybody that's listening is that, the people do kind of get this thing kind of jumbled up. Like Pro Tour and PDGA, they're like two separate and like competitive entities, and that's really, really not true. And we do go to the Pro Tour events to support those, and they are the boss at those events because they own those events. And then, when they come to Pro Worlds or Champions Cup, the PDGA is the leader there. And then people like Phil come in and like Bill Randolph and stuff, and they come in and say, all right, guys, where do you need us? I mean, Phil has marshaled and just gone out there, and at Worlds, he was like weed whacking and stuff, like just doing all sorts of junk. And I mean, that's just the way that it works in those different, when you're in the different arenas, then you go and accomplish the goal that makes sense for you and your organization. And then just who's taking the lead depends on, which events it is. So, and so anyways, I think like to answer your question a little bit better, I think that defining these things a little bit is certainly a goal for us. And we communicate with the Pro Tour tons. And I think getting everybody just kind of aligned really well is going to be the first thing that makes the 2024 season, the PDGA majors and the Pro Tour just be top notch and be even better than this year, which was awesome. So it's exciting. But we got to get through, like, if you were in the room during our talks today, you could easily have fallen asleep because it was kind of like super corporate-y and that kind of sort of talk. It wasn't, getting really, really exciting stuff, but you gotta like eat your vegetables and then you can have your ice cream, kind of a thing.
Tomorrow's the ice cream. Tomorrow's the fun ones. So.
Oh, tomorrow with the operations and logistics team, it's gonna be something. I'm looking forward to it because we're gonna do a bunch of talk about rules and the majors and communicating about the majors and stuff. So there's probably gonna be some parts where it's maybe a little bit of a snooze fest for people that aren't literally doing the work. But there's going to be some stuff, like some exercises that we're doing with communication about rules that I think is going to be really interesting. And we'll probably scan a whole range of emotions where people are like, that doesn't matter, don't worry about that. And some people like that are really trying to champion something. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for it though. And it'll create some really good media and education for not just PDGA members, but anybody that wants to play disc golf and look up the rules or anything like that. We plan to have some really fun and enticing media ready for the whole global community.
Yeah, and we don't want to, so to speak, beat to death, especially with you being more so from the marketing perspective. But obviously, rules were adopted and kind of finalized for what we're going to see for 2024. Rather than like the minutia of the individual rules and every little detail as to how any of them were adjusted, just maybe give a high level overview of that process. And again, who cares? Like, who cares the most as to how it comes about and unfolded? Because I think there's a lot of misconception about the rules and then how they're either changed or adopted or transformed.
Right. Yeah. So the way the process works, and I'm really simplifying this here. So if Sully, Michael Sullivan sees this, or Steve Gans, or Michael Downs, and I get this wrong, or whatever, too simplified, just deal with it, guys.
Just put it in a newsletter.
Okay.
You can put an addendum to the newsletter. Yeah.
The PDGA's never had issues with you guys coming on podcasts. Don't worry.
Yeah, they've all been good.
Where are my sunglasses? Still too soon. For all the new disc golfers out there, we'll tell you later.
Yeah.
But anyways,
ask your parents.
Ask your parents. From the way back before times in 2021. But anyways, I can't believe I went there, but whatever. Anyways, so the way that the process works, it's like this constant cycle, and it's like a year-long deal with the rules. So kind of starts with the rules and competition committees coming together and saying, hey, this is like feedback that we received via email or on the ground or whatever. Let's get a proposal that we send to the board of directors and say, here are some things that we've identified as requests or anecdotal evidence or whatever, or maybe it's solid like analytical evidence that says maybe we should take a look at this. And so then, and this just happened at the board of directors summit that was 2 weeks ago, or last week or something like that. What is time anyways? But so what they'll do is that rules committee will basically showcase those rules that they think they should work on and provide kind of a little bit of context. Like, we recommend that the board directs us to work on this, or they might say, honestly, we're not all completely sold on this, or but we could work on it if the board of directors thinks we should and wants to prioritize it. Or they might say, hey, this is a red light. We really don't think we should work on it. This is one thing that was sent to us, maybe only a handful of times, but we do want to bring it to your attention. Those are very few. A lot of times they do want to just get the work done and address any sort of feedback on the rules. So anyways, that gets presented to the board like it just did. Then the rules and competition committees come together and figure out possible solutions, and those are presented to the board of directors in the spring. And that's to say, like, okay, this is what we came up with. Does this make sense to you guys? Can you approve this, and or what feedback do you have? Then the board will usually say, here's a few tweaks that we want you guys to consider to the rules and competition committee. And then they'll say, go back, work on this, refine this way. Did you guys consider how this is working, or how this could be a potential, there might be a potential conflict in the future? And then the rules and competition committee will usually go back, and then maybe as late as the fall summit, present the final rule change one by one to the board of directors. And then that's when the board of directors would say, okay, that's approved. Or they might say, hey, there's still work that needs to be done here. But so that it's kind of like that cycle. It's like almost like a 3-stop cycle where the board is presented with proposed rule changes, basically, and then they vote, yay or nay. And then it goes to the public comment, where any PDGA member can say, well, if you ask me, I think that rule's dumb. And we certainly hear that plenty. Or there's people that are like, actually, I'm really supportive of this. So, there were, an example of this was there was a proposal for the D tiers and making C tiers exclusive to PDGA members only. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the response to that was, we don't really like that. And we said, this is not going to make people happy. We're not going to just make a rule to make a rule. So we're just not going to do this right now. So is there merit in that suggestion? The D tier and C tiers are just for members? Sure. I mean, you could argue either point. I tend to agree. I think that it would be a little hasty at this time to do that and make the C tiers exclusive. So I'm happy with that result. But it's a whole process. I mean, a lot of really smart people did a lot of deep analysis and discussion on these things, and for the most part, I think it comes out to the right conclusion. And sometimes the rules are still a little difficult to understand because they have to kind of be written in legalese type of a language, and because of rules, and it's like the laws, and so you have to make things very, very black and white. But sometimes a picture is going to explain a little better than the rule itself, and so that's the kind of thing that we're going to be working on a little bit more here.
Who's in charge of drawing?
Caitlin.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, it's so much more of a process than I think most people think. I feel as if, by and large, a lot of people are like, a couple of people sat together in a room one day, just decided to think of the dumbest rule they could possibly think of, and then just all of a sudden it's enacted.
That's what we're for.
And like, it's so much more than that. And coincidentally, I disagree with you. I think we've evolved as a sport and an organization to where even C tier requiring membership at a C tier, I don't think is the worst thing. However, I know that was proposed, it ultimately was then the feedback came in. It seemed to be resounding enough that people didn't like it. So you listened, whether that's just a sheer majority or whatever, and that wasn't implemented. And I love the process, whether I agree with it or not. With the outcome, I love the actual process that goes into it. It's so much more involved, though, than most people realize. And that's partly why I teed up the question for you, because it's not flippant at all. And this is obviously really serious stuff. And let's face it, we all have rules and non-rules that we think either should be enacted or enforced or should be created or completely abolished. Everyone's going to have some personal opinion on them, but by and large, the committee does the job and gets it done. And I definitely didn't want to get too far into like all of rules with you. I know that's also not necessarily your specialty. Not that you don't know them, but it's not your specialty within your task and your role. From a marketing perspective within the PDGA, and I know this is kind of a big question, but is there any one thing that you and maybe it's not the same with the organization, but that you personally feel like is an opportunity that's just you can't wait to take, you can't wait to dive into, or there's something, it's so big, it's the elephant in the room, or it's this big opportunity on the table and you just need to seize it? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
Yeah, I think international impact and attracting international members. We are the global governing body for the sport of disc golf. And the only thing that makes that a little bit difficult to say is that our majority of our members are in North America, and the US and Canada, which, I mean, obviously is great. I mean, PDGA and the sport of disc golf have been doing well with that, but it's also, it's kind of it's like the argument of, how do you call it Worlds and it's never outside of hosted outside of North America?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well,
it could be, and it will be sometime,
and it will be some as soon as next year. That's all I'm gonna say. But there's I think so. I think that should be a priority. And of course, as far as membership goes, attracting a more diverse community to disc golf has always been a goal. And so, the classic example is there are like 7.4% of PDGA members are women. And it's just, can we change that? And so figuring out ways that we can attract those markets is really good. And so whether it's like more female members, getting more diversity through our like cultural and international descriptions, that would be fine. Getting juniors involved as well, like that's a big part of elevating junior worlds and doing a lot of media coverage at those events, because you can't see what you don't see, or whatever that expression is, you know what I mean? If it's not there to be seen, then people just might not even know. So that's why we put a lot of effort into coverage like that. So I think that's a lot of that example and examples of how we're going to try to address that. But there's more that needs to be done, and we just kind of have to get some minds together and figure it out. But those would be my priorities, basically, I think.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but there's this place called Thailand, and we're trying to develop the international scene over there. And I know a guy that could maybe offer you a palm tree or two. Or
you know?
Yeah, no. In all seriousness, no. When we look at, kind of shifting gears into, like you said, coverage and notoriety and just kind of shining a light. Is it at all? I don't want to say discouraging, but when you put in effort into non-MPO, FPO coverage, as in we're showcasing and highlighting our up-and-comers, our amateurs, or our juniors, or whatever, what's that conversation like? Because you're not seeing the return in terms of views, for instance, and the overall publicity. You're not seeing that we see when Ricky and Paul and Eagle and Simon play in a round of golf. So do you guys care about that? Maybe that's the best question, is do you care, or is it more of an archival showcase, agenda? What's that balancing act like?
Yeah, totally. I think as the global governing body of the sport, and, one of the oldest institutions that's been propped up for the sport, and, longest running as well, it's kind of our job and like our responsibility to be stewards of like the sport's history and everything like that. So yeah, like somewhat serving as a I don't know, cultural touch point that people can continue to come back to is really important. And sure, like I actually am pulled up a little analysis for the YouTube coverage that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, some of these events are not necessarily the most commercially maybe sought out, because of modest. Like I'm one right now. I mean, AmWorlds was 69,000 total views over, so the MA1 and FA1 coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Junior Worlds was 50,000. So I mean, it's not nothing, but it's certainly not like something that we do for money.
Sure.
We don't even monetize our videos. So, so you shouldn't be seeing like commercials or anything like that. So it's really to try to get more accessibility. And we've also been attempting to create other like channels. So really good photographers that we contract with. Even Corey Merle came out to Pro Worlds, and we worked with him there for just new types of content that we haven't historically done. And again, it's really about getting more people to see the sport, just kind of try to saturate the market with information. And at the very least, I mean, still done. We could. So far, it's been working. Don't say that thing into that rut, because there's not a lot of progress there, So yeah, there's a considered when it picking.
All right, Dan, you're starting to get really choppy on us.
Your internet got a little glitchy on us there for a minute. It's that great hotel internet.
Yeah, are you watching? Are you trying to prop up all those views? Are you watching while you're talking to us? No, I'm just kidding. I think we got the gist of what you were saying, though. Well, with that, we're gonna start to cut you loose here, because then we won't have you chopping in and out of us. I had another question though. I don't recall what it was, but here's what I want to say. I want to just say, first of all, thank you for joining us. I know it's short notice. I know you guys are doing a bunch of things this week. Well, we've said here for years, and we'll say it publicly again, when the PDGA has initiatives or new employees or new ideas, new programs, whatever the case is, you guys have allies here in SmashBoxx. We're more than happy to amplify any kind of thing that's going on. Johnny and I have both been members for more than 20 years, 25, almost 30 years.
Don't say that. That makes us sound really old.
No, we got in early. We got in early.
We got in early. Okay, good. Yes.
And I think, what I'm getting at too, though, is more than just the initiatives. I think it would be great if we could get more PDGA either board members and or staff members here, so we could shine light on what some of these people are doing. I mean, right now people think, oh, it's easy just to go online and complain when something's not going their way. Like, let's start putting some faces out there and having people describe what a day-to-day job looks like, whether you're a big dog or a Michael Downs or literally anyone on the staff that you've mentioned. Every one of those people have way more to do than I think most of the public realizes. And I think
there's a reason they're full-time positions.
Exactly. And I would love to help amplify and showcase some of those people and the skill sets that make the PDGA go around. So keep that in your back pocket, that anytime you think we'll take anyone pretty much anytime. And it doesn't have to be negative. Everybody thinks, let's get the PDGA on because we want to grill them or question them or badger or something like that. And that's not really our style. We want answers sometimes, but we also want to make sure that we're talking to the people that are making this entire organization tick. So,
yeah. Is my connection a little better? No?
It's a little bit better, and it sounds like it's going to be choppy. So if you could give us some of your final words. Like I said, this will kind of keep us brief anyway. So if you want to give us any parting shots or final words, please bring it on.
Okay, hopefully you can hear it. But if you have feedback, you can email us, the media team. It's media@PDGA, and that might help inform some of the things that we could address here. So if the audience has any feedback, feel free to let me know. I'm sure you guys could let me know as well, but just whatever comes up. And I have a suspicion that Todd Lyon's in the chat, and he works on the event support team, one of the smartest minds in disc golf. And I think he's been on SmashBoxx before, so
yes,
we can get guys like him out there, and he can. This dude knows everything there is to know about disc golf, especially obviously what he does for a living too. So we'll get more people out here so we can show how membership dollars are working and stuff like that. So
yes, we are we're all about it. I have the pleasure of seeing and interacting with so many people within the PDGA, and I want to be able to share some of those experiences and those insights that I get week in and week out. And I like you said, I think that's a great way to put it, is to see where our membership dollars are going and the work that's getting put in. So, Danny, we appreciate, again, you joining us kind of short notice. We wish you the best of luck throughout the rest of the week. And as more things move forward into prepping for 2024, we're here for you guys and ready to do whatever we can to help push us forward. And you're going to get a follow-up on that Southeast Asia development we're working on. So just plan on that. All right, pal. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. See ya.
Thanks, Danny.
All right, Danny Voss joining us tonight to give us some good insight. And I will say that again. When you and I joined, Johnny, I'm just saying it was
1.5.
It was Brian Honegger, Guru as he goes by, and his wife Lori.
And she was a part-time employee.
And she was at that time, I believe, a part-time employee. There was 1.5 full-time positions within the PDGA. And now, obviously, the large boom of boost and boom of COVID helped significantly. But even before that, we grew into the International Disc Golf Center thanks to Brian Graham, who helped champion that and put it together. And then to see Joe Chargoloff take over after Brian Graham. And as we continue to expand into this very significant staff that is the PDGA, it's pretty incredible. So, yeah, I think we should be showcasing. Honestly, we could almost talk to a staff member every other week. And then you put in a board member, we could fill an entire year worth of having a different person just about every week. There's enough insight and content out there. So we'll take you guys at any time and go from there.
One of the things that, speaking of rules that we were kind of talking about, I was while Danny was on, I was scrolling through the different rules. One of the new rules, kind of related to media, is that there is a change in 3.06, which is tour player media and sponsor relations. And what it says now, it used to say media personnel should refrain from interviewing a player until after they have officially submitted their scorecard. Now, it says players should not engage in media interviews until after they have officially submitted a scorecard. And I saw a little bit of rumblings on the internet like, oh, good. That means the players are going to, get a break after the round, blah, blah. I don't think that's what this means. Our scorecards are digitally submitted 95 or more % of the time. I think what this is just that this is putting the onus on the player and not the media, because this is remember, this rule book is for the players. This competition manual is for the players. This isn't a media rule book. Mm-hmm. So what this does is this rephrases the question, or it's not a question, rephrases the statement from the media personnel to the player. And as we know, you can tap out. Everybody's got their scorecard now. Next year, everybody will be carrying a digital scorecard or maybe a physical one, depending on what goes on. But my guess is probably digital. Afterwards, everyone will kind of sit there, submit scores, and it's going to take all of about a minute to verify scores. Probably just double check that everybody has the same name, everyone has the same score, and the same number on each hole. So it's the right score on every hole. And then they'll be open for an interview. I don't think this changes too much next year from a media
well, what I'll say is I feel like this was largely adopted and mostly applied this year anyway.
Yeah.
Again, a little background in that our protocol is so that the player taps in and they'll have, a quick celebration within the card or the group or friends and family running up. The player taps in. They are supposed to then walk to the rest of the group, wherever that is, to complete their scorecard. That's when we're setting up, so to speak, near the basket or near wherever from a champion's interview perspective. That's where we set up in the media, and then after it's submitted, they come talk to us. Now, that didn't happen at 100% of the live events. I'm not going to kid anyone and say that it did, but it happened at most of them. That is the protocol that was yet again now kind of concocted and landed upon.
It's always
because we've had a number
fluid.
Of them. Yeah, we've had a number of them, but that's the general protocol in which is supposed to have been taking place most this year. Now there's just sometimes that awkwardness, and I made a post that got a little traction when someone said this is a problem. What can happen? And then that's when I made the joke and said, yeah, as soon as Ricky taps in, if he looks at me and then starts thanking sponsors and thanking friends and family, do I pull out a yellow card or a red card and start giving him strokes like, shut up, and penalizing him? Of course not. But every player, depending on their what's the word I'm looking for? How often they win or their experience, every player feels a little different, and sometimes it's going to be within the moment. Did you hit a 50-footer that was, so to speak, to win it, or were you about to tap in because you won by 9?
Yeah, and
like every
100%.
Situation is so different. Now, here's where the conversation always continues, which, again, some people love and some people hate, which is, oh, that's good. Then we're not going to hear any more terrible interviews the second they tapped in because they haven't even had a second to think about it.
Oh, you're still going to do terrible interviews, Terry. Don't you worry.
Well, just the fact that people think that they haven't processed it. Now they're going to have, again, the 60 seconds to process it. Do they feel different? The flip side of that very coin, when you say, hey, I hate those. I hate it when a mic gets shoved in their face the second after they win. There are plenty of people on the other side that say, I love the raw emotion. I love how they react. It is the rawest, purest emotion immediately after it happens, and I love that side of it. So I'm just telling you, there are two sides to that coin. A lot of people, I've just seen it from both sides. I understand you want them to let it sink in, but let's be real. Some people, we talk to them 2 days later, and they're like, I still don't know how to feel, because they're on our show. everyone's emotions and their experience is going to be different. The protocol, however, yes, let them, of course, add their scorecard. And I get it. That's a purely logistical, sound, logical way to do it. Because you'd hate for, somebody taps in, they think they won. Most people think they win. And then, the rest of the cards over, they're adding up the scores and they're like, wait a minute, we have you off by 2 or by 1. We get it. Like, of course, the gulf is what does come first, and I'm never going to suggest otherwise. But this is the protocol that was largely attempted this year. Sometimes if anyone's effing it up, honestly, it's the player. So I like what you said, where within the rule book, it says the player should not engage. And so, no, I'm not going to be pulling anyone by the hair. I got Ricky's belt loop and pulling him over. Get the lasso and, the Texas event. None of that's going to happen. All right.
Just thought I'd bring that up.
Yep.
And that's really, other than that, obviously most of us have already talked about or shown the rules.
Yeah, I think the other big scoring score related one too is, yes, that everyone within the group now will be responsible for scoring. That will continue to be met with mixed emotion. Some people love it, some people hate it. That, just to be clear, that can be 4 people doing it on the PDGA.
Correct.
I think a lot of people have this misconception
that it's a paper scorecard.
One person has to do it on PDGA, and then anywhere from 1 to 3 other people have to be doing it on paper. That's not necessarily the case either. It could be that, but that's not the requirement.
And you do not get penalized if somebody else submits a wrong scorecard for you. If your scorecard is correct, somebody else submits a wrong one, you do not get penalized.
Yeah, so
just read the rules.
Exactly.
They're out there.
We're gonna get a caddy while you're at it. If you hate it so much,
get a caddy.
Get a caddy that just does the scoring.
And then
there's some people that don't like their bags carried. Have a friend or a caddy or whomever. Just be your scorekeeper for you on your behalf. You have one support person, and maybe that support person turns into a scoring person.
Tinder for caddies. There it is. That's the next app I'm gonna make. Think? Huh?
I'm just
finds people
thinking of a
local
swipe right or swipe left reference, but I don't think that any of them would be appropriate.
Okay,
so let's move on.
The 2023 Innova Discs Myrtle Beach Open tournament director Chad Sullivan taking this one to town. Joey Anderson, Joey Buckets, winning in extra holes over Braden Sides. Congratulations, Joey and Braden. They both shot 29, but of course, Joey gets the $2,000 prize, where Braden takes home the $1,500 prize. In third place, Andrew Marweed. Fourth place, Grady Shue. And a 3-way tie for fifth between Evan Scott, Micah Groth, and Kale Leviska. So congratulations. I've seen lots of pictures from Kale on social media down there, just enjoying Myrtle Beach with his wife and kid.
Yep.
What a rough life to live.
He's down, I think he's working on a course design in the area, and then also doing some off-season snowbirding down in that area for a little while. I was going to call it vacation. It's probably not a vacation.
Not 100% vacation, but I don't think he's... let's put it this way. He's doing less work there than he would be at some course up here in Minnesota that he tends to be, busting his ass at every week, doing something or other. So I'm happy that Kale gets a break. In the FPO division, Paige Shue wins this one by a single stroke over Holly Finley. Third place, Rebecca Cox and Deanne Carey. And in fifth place, Juliana Corver, the ageless wonder. So congratulations to our FPO and our MPO competitors. We're going to move over to Arlington, Texas for the VPO, the Veterans Park Open. This is a long time event, especially for Terry and I.
33 years.
Yeah, this is one of those events that you and I, everybody looked forward to the results of the VPO when we were younger. You'd get your magazine and look through it, see who won. Barry Schultz won it a couple times, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at first place, Mason Marchbanks, who's a 10-10 rated player, wins by 2 strokes, taking home $1,950, beating the likes of second place, Luke Humphreys and Emerson Keith, which answers the question. Emerson Keith was not at the NADGT, as I maybe anticipated. He was here this weekend, taking second place. And in fourth place, a 3-way tie between Freddie Meza, Jaden Rye, and Micah Tatro, not Micah Groth. That'd be hard for him to be in both places. So Micah Tatro, that was a 3-way tie for 4th place. Going down to the FPO division, a smaller field, just 3 players, and Holland handily wins this one.
Holland handily.
Yeah, over Emily Weatherman, 37 strokes. Holland is just in mid-season form, shooting 996, 999, and 1,000 rated golf. So that's enough to win you an Elite Series event if you're lucky there. Maybe at worst place, 2nd place. But congratulations, Holland, who's shooting some
good golf.
Hot golf. And I'm going to mention it just because I happen to see it. He's our age, so he understands the significance of the VPO on a personal level.
He finished 2nd, I think, 4 times in a row, he told me the other day.
Ouch. Yeah. I need to reach out to him. I haven't chatted with that guy in a while. Eric McCabe wins MP40. Congratulations, EMAC, on your MP40 win at the VPO.
Finally getting it.
Happy to see it, buddy. Happy to see it for you.
Yes, congrats.
And that's the extent of our A tiers that we need to talk about this week.
Okay. I had another one before Danny joined us. I know you were showing us Myrtle Beach or something else I was going to dive into.
It clearly wasn't important.
It has slipped my mind. The other question I was going to ask for Danny, and you kind of touched on it earlier, is just, look at what Callie has done. We're going to get Callie on at some point during this off season, but look at what Callie has done just a year ago, a little less than a year ago. We had her on talking about the development of the Masters Tour, and now here she is with it fully recognized, as you called earlier, on the PDGA schedule. Yep. She also, I think, made an update saying shortly after there was an Ultra World article released talking about A tiers, and she said there's going to be even more events. Don't just go by what's within that article, so to speak. So she's building upon it.
I'm curious if there's going to be more DGMT A tiers or just more DGMT events, because I'm sure that there will be more DGMT events. The question is, will there be A tiers, or is this more or less the settled A tier tournament schedule, and that she maybe will add some B tiers in there, some large B tiers that we've seen, something like maybe like the Rumble or something like that.
Yeah.
Those type of events would not shock me. Looking forward to hearing from Callie at some point.
Yes, and a couple of I'm going to give a selfish plug here. The Cold Turkey is essentially filled up on Saturday's side. That's the event, the C tier, that I'll be running in a little more than 2 weeks. It has kind of officially filled up on the pro/advanced side, 72 players. Dynamic Disc is a presenting sponsor now of that event. So big thank you to Dynamic Disc. We're going to be fitting right within that trilogy lineup in terms of the offerings for you guys for that event. So thank you so much. On the AM side, we have just about 60 out of 72 players. So just a little more than a dozen. I was going to say a handful. A little more than a couple handfuls of spots. So about 11 or 12 spots available for that event, just so you guys know. Looking forward to having you guys here in southeastern Wisconsin.
I want to give a quick shout out to Joel Langford, Patreon member. We got his mini here, him and his son. His son's now, in this picture, looks like he's pretty young, 5. His son's now 12. That's how long it took me to get, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Joel, but we do have your mini. It's going to make it up on the board at some point in the next week or so, and I'll take a new photo for the intro to the podcast so that we can get you on there. And if you want to be eligible or get a mini with your photo on it, you can be a $5 a month Patreon member at patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. That's how we support the show. So I know we don't talk about it in the regular show very often. It's usually an after show discussion, but if you want to be eligible for our weekly giveaways, for our yearly disc giveaways, for the studio mini, you can go to patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV and take a look there.
Oh, and I'm going to give a tease. You know what we're giving away tonight, right?
Oh, I didn't realize we were going to give that away. I was going to give away something else, but if we want to give this away.
Tonight.
If tonight is the night, I will give you that.
We're going to go a little extra separate. Tonight. Oh. Okay. You're going to have your choice. I've got a couple of different, they just came in today, so I've got a couple different Samui disc golf.
And we'll talk a lot more about
disc.
the Samui stuff right in the after show.
Yeah, so these are a couple of your options that I'll have, and I want to find whoever ends up being the winner.
That's a nice, pretty one.
Yeah, real pretty. Whoever ends up being the winner tonight, I want to give you an option as to which of those you may like the most, and then we'll get them sent out.
Bet you they'd like them all, Terry.
I bet you they would. And the rest will be available for sale if you want to support. We're going to come up with some kind of friends of Samui or partners or supporters of Samui. There's a lot of different opportunities in which you, your business, your company, whatever, can show support for as we continue to develop disc golf in all of Southeast Asia. And then specifically, my first area of business will be to continue help pushing Samui forward in that capacity up there in Maynam. So yeah, super excited. I'll break down all of that and then some. If you have any questions in the after show, we can talk more about that. In terms of other news, is that just about everything there, Johnny?
I think we've
everything
covered.
On my note list is covered.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of the news that's fit to cover.
Yeah, and if there's more, well, there will be. Yeah, I think we can. We're going to go ahead and call it for our regular show. I want to again thank Danny Voss for jumping on. I know he's been busy. We tried to possibly set something up a couple weeks ago, and with all the stuff the board was doing, it just didn't work out. And we appreciate him being flexible and for the internet working 97% of that time.
Just that last question or so
Yes.
really got us.
So that's like the ultimate playoff music. Like you get all choppy and we're just like,
All right, cut him.
cut. Speaking of cutting it, we're going to do just that. This has been SmashBox TV's podcast 479. We're going to take a very quick break. Don't go anywhere, because when you come back, we'll have the after show. We'll interact with you more. We'll answer some questions off the board. We'll have the giveaway of the stuff we were just talking about, your option of a Samui disc. And we'll talk about things disc golf and non-disc golf related, and we'll take it all from there. For Johnny V, I'm the disc golf guy, along with Danny Voss. Thanks for joining. We'll see you in the after show. You step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBox TV's podcast 479's After Show.
WT Force brings up a good point that we just briefly talked about. Almost 10 years. I wonder if they'll do a 10-year anniversary disc. Now, the question is, do you do a 10-year anniversary on the podcast, or do you do a 10-year anniversary on the Patreon? Because we didn't start Patreon until like late 2017, 2018-ish. So it would be 10 years of discs or 10 years of podcast.
I say F it, you do both.
You do both.
So we'll do a 10-year anniversary podcast disc. And then once we get to 10 years, if there's any one patron that's been a patron for 10 years,
I'm sure there will be. We have some loyal patrons.
Then
they
are getting an extra special disc, and I am.
Jim Van Lanen did
it.
that for us. Remember
Yes.
that?
Oh, yeah.
You and I both have the 5-year.
Did they do it at 5 or was it 10 the first time?
I think it was 5 the first time. I believe it might. Maybe it was 10. I'd have to look. It's my thing. But we got a disc with our names on it, and then there was a 10-year. Was the 10-year the beer bottle with our name on it?
I don't recall. That sounds maybe right.
I think that sounds right. And I don't remember what 15 was, but
yeah, and what Johnny's talking about is Manitowoc in the Park, which kind of evolved into being Silver Cup, Silver Creek Open, Silver Cup, those varying names throughout the years. It started in 2000, and at the 5-year mark, he had pulled from every player that had attended all 5 years. And there were, I want to say 30 of us, roughly.
Yeah, about that
had attended all 5 years. 10 years, it was down to like probably, I think, 10 or 15 of us that had attended all 10 years, Johnny V and I both being in that.
I think I made it 14 is what I think I made.
I think we ended our streak. We didn't make it to the next one. We ended our streak because that was the first year of the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
Yeah, we literally couldn't.
So we couldn't.
We were covering it live.
We were covering it live and then couldn't play. And I feel like if there's a fitting way to end a streak of attending a tournament, doing it because you're covering it live and we're at the time doing some semi-revolutionary stuff, I will take that. That's kind of how I feel about, I attended here in Wisconsin. We have what was called the Real Ice Bowl, and it had started, and my very first one was in 96 when I was in high school, and that was my first one. It was the 8th at the time. I played in it, I think, for until 2000. I want to say 24 years, 25 years, whatever it was. And I ended it by going to Samui for my first time. So if you're going to end like a 20 plus year streak of playing in a particular event,
make it worthwhile.
Going to Thailand for my first time was worth it. Similarly, I ended 20 consecutive years of playing in Worlds to broadcast Worlds in 2016.
Yeah.
In Emporia. I had played 20 consecutive Worlds, 4 AM Worlds, and then 16
I remember that was tough for you.
And it really was. The idea, and thank God by that time I had accepted the fact that I certainly was not in any threat of even really cashing, so that made it a little easier. But to end a 20-year streak,
a lot of pros were like, "Woo! Thank God, Terry."
Yes.
Man, scary.
the guy in 83rd was like, "Hell yeah, 82nd,
no,
here I come."
No, the guy who just didn't make the B pool to the A pool, he was like, "Thank you, Terry Miller."
Yeah, so it made it easier at that point, yes. But ending a 20-year streak, and at that time, I may have had, outside of Greenwell, I may have had one of the longest streaks in disc golf.
Greenwell and Avery, probably.
Avery, yeah. And I think I even had Avery because he had his first Worlds, I want to say, was in 97.
Oh, because he started after you.
Yeah. So at that time. So
God.
At any rate, yeah, I know this dates us and this means we're old and all that other stuff. But, the funny thing is some of that stuff only matters to me. Right? Like some of those streaks and whatnot, I thought of them as a really big deal, and they were to me, but they're not to anyone else, and that's okay.
It's not like you've hit every single world.
Correct.
Like at that point, then maybe it would have been something a little different. Quadzilla asks the question, what are your thoughts on the NADGT winner going AM for yet another season? I think that's a personal decision. And I personally don't have a problem with it. I think it depends a lot on what your goals in the sport are. If your goals are to become a pro disc golfer, then I would question it. I would say, you're probably better off if you've won NADGT and your goal is to be a professional touring golfer, get in that pro division and start winning. If your goal maybe is to be a regional pro and you still maybe want to win a Worlds, maybe you went, maybe this was your first big AM win. I'm not here to judge somebody else's decision unless I feel like it should be judged. And then I'll totally do it. But not for this one. So I don't really mind either way.
I'll say specifically as I look at Corbin, because I do not know Corbin personally. I see
him and I are tight.
He has declined cash at every event. Every event he had potentially cashed in during the year. And it looks like there was a number of them that he would have cashed in. He had won somewhere in the neighborhood of like 5 or 6.
You're assuming this is Corbin and not.
Well, he won the NADGT. So
I was saying I'm assuming you're not talking FPL. But
Rebecca, I don't think has been nearly as dominant per se as what Corbin has been. And so I'm looking at, Corbin won the Glassblown Open. Took fourth
in MA1.
In MA1, excuse me, yeah. Took fourth at Worlds, AM Worlds. Then won a couple of A tiers in 3 A tiers to be, or 2 A tiers in September. Won a couple of other B tiers throughout the year, all in advanced.
If that were my, I'll just say this: if that were my resume, I would be moving to Open. But Corbin might have a different path.
Here's what I would say to that, and again, this is just a snapshot judgment. Not knowing Corbin or having conversation with him. My only quick judgment would be you sometimes would stay in an AM division or a lower division because you want to learn how to win and you want to learn how to play under those pressures. I feel as if he's accomplished that. He knows he has done a lot. Wow. A lot of winning in the last 2 or 3 years. He's a relatively let's check what year. He's joined the PDGA in 2020, and since then, in between 2021, which was a flex start, and this year, he has put together 19 wins. A lot of them being last year and this year is A tiers and B tiers. It feels as if he knows how to win under some pressure, and then goes on to win one of the biggest events of the year. Again, I agree with you, Johnny. Do whatever you want. But it feels as if his skills are definitely threatening enough. I just don't know what else he has to gain by playing advanced anymore.
Correct. Start taking that money.
That's my point. Is what else are you gaining by continuing to play?
Spend a year being a decent regional pro, and then maybe make that effort to push into the pro tour or something like that.
So whatever the case might be, again, I'm just using him as an example because he did win this weekend, and I see that he's got a 992 rating, and he's played in 90 events. He's won 19 of them in a very short career. To me, it feels like he has the skills to take that next.
And
leap.
I don't think that projecting why someone might stay in amateur, maybe to win worlds, AM Worlds or something. I don't feel like that is going to bolster your resume much more than winning the NADGT at this point. Now, I do think that AM World probably stands a little bit above NADGT still in my mind, but I'm not an amateur player. I don't know what the amateur... I guess I'm technically an amateur player.
You play one on TV.
I play one, not just on TV, my friend, on the course too. I don't know what the amateur players think these days of NADGT versus Worlds. I'm not in that position to make that call. If NADGT is a more prestigious, maybe the wrong word, a more significant event, then maybe it's time for pro. But if you have your heart set on it, or maybe there's a different reason behind it, again, I'm not gonna ask any questions other than to Terry Miller. Terry Miller, I heard you bought the island of Samui. True or false?
Close.
True or false?
Close. That would be false.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on. No, you had a big announcement. You teased it last week.
Yep.
I was going to ask you after the show last week to spill the beans to me privately. I forgot. Totally forgot until you started making the pre-tease today about going live. And then I tuned in to find out that you have now purchased Samui Disc Golf.
Yes.
Explain to us and our viewers and our listeners exactly what that means. What is that purchase of Samui Disc Golf?
Yeah, what I'll start with real quick is that Nigel Mills and his family had moved on to the island of Samui, and Ko, in my understanding, Ko is the Thai word for island. So you don't say the island of Ko Samui because it feels like you're saying island twice. I only learned that not too long ago. So, but anyway, onto the island of Samui, otherwise known as Ko Samui, which is funny because some spell it K-O-H and then some spell it K-O. Either way. They had moved there, started disc golf. Nigel found disc golf. It was shortly thereafter that Luke Butch, who's originally from New York, here in the States, not some other New York, Luke Butch at some point had also moved to Thailand. Of course, they didn't know each other at the time. And Nigel worked with his neighbors and worked to develop Samui Disc Golf, which is on the north side of Samui. And obviously it's an island. There is disc golf that's played on the south side of Samui. Another gentleman runs that's in charge of it. And Nigel has been working on the north side in Mae Nam. So when you see that spelled out, Mae Nam is for lack of a better term, it's like a township, so to speak. And that's all on the north side. And after having this for many years and then developing the Samui Swine as an event, and then running other smaller events, running a regular league, a weekly league, maybe even 2 leagues at a time during some of these times. I believe there's maybe a Wednesday league and a Saturday league for a while. Doing all of these things, eventually getting some top-level professionals there to come and visit and play in various formats and play in the event. And then having me come in 2019 for my first time, then coming back in 2020, and then coming back in 2022. After all these years of being on the island, Nigel and his 3 daughters, along with his wife Sam and his mother-in-law, have all decided that they're moving onto the mainland of Thailand. And it's kind of in the northern part of the mainland, which is in Chiang Mai. Conveniently and coincidentally, I associated myself with Chiang Mai and their disc golf scene just last year, so this really provides a little extra insight for me personally. But they're moving. They have moved. They're packing up. They've packed up their entire life, their business, everything about them, and have moved to Chiang Mai. That left the Samui disc golf course behind, which essentially involves the property in which they have the course on, and then a few neighboring properties. Neighboring properties that they have a great relationship with and have had for many, many years. And you've seen different holes that actually sprawl onto a few of the neighboring yards. When Nigel was getting ready to move and getting on a plane, boat, all this other stuff to move, he wasn't able to take the disc golf course with him.
You can't just pack those baskets up.
You can't just pack those up. And at that point, it was a little uncertain as to how Samui disc golf would continue to move forward. Having a conversation with Nigel, having a conversation with Luke, who was going to stay there primarily right there on the island, it worked out in that I would step in and I would become owner of essentially, like, I'll say the brand and then all the physical assets that are there, which has now blossomed into 16-ish baskets. There's 11 baskets that are in play that are mounted, and then also a handful of portable baskets that get used as practice baskets. There's tables, there's chairs, there's canopies, there's really nice tee pads that have only been developed in the last couple of years that were framed up and carpeted and everything else. Those were just installed a few years ago. And any other assets that were there on site, including some refrigeration, some other stuff. Nigel has run Nigel's barbecue and catering service there out of that same location for the last decade or so. And so he had a pretty expansive kitchen because he was catering to sometimes hundreds of people. The catering business will no longer be there as Nigel's not. So we're essentially taking that same space that was largely used as a kitchen and turning that into as expansive as we can, a pro shop. And that will be outfitted with different manufacturers, so on and so forth, and really creating it as a souvenir shop, a disc golf souvenir / pro shop, not only just for the locals, but then of course when people come there, getting a souvenir or getting a disc or whatever with the branding is just a must get. So that's what it essentially means. I will reiterate for, just to be 100% crystal clear, as an expat or as a non Thai national, I cannot own land or property.
I don't think you're an expat. I don't think you can use that.
I think I'm considered an expat.
I think anyone
that
I was under the concept of expat is someone who has actually moved away from the country, not just that goes and visits.
A person who lives outside their native country.
Okay, so you're not an expat because you do
Somebody
live
who,
here, but you
who leaves their country of origin and settles abroad.
But you visit
for an extended period of time, often permanently.
You are not an expat.
Okay, so as a non-Thai,
correct, but you're
national or or as an expat, you can't. No, I appreciate it.
I just want to correct
you. Cannot own own land. Which is in so many ways beautiful. Like otherwise people would be coming onto these places and these islands and
just buying up the land,
buying up every inch of it,
turning it into a vacationville.
Yeah. So you have to live there or I'm sorry, you have to be married, I believe. And then even then, I'm not sure that things are in your name. And Luke's out on the board now. That's great to see. I think even if I married someone from Thailand, I believe
it's not in your name.
It's still not in my name.
Okay.
I believe is how that works. Anyway, so that's the long and short of it. We're going to continue to expand. Luke has already taken it upon himself to develop and work to implement foot golf onto the property as well. Obviously, we've seen that go through, its stages of popularity, but for the implementation that it took.
And is this a pay-to-play course?
Yes, so It is pay-to-play. Just bring a couple hundred baht and you're good to go. Funny, I should know this. I want to say is it 200, Luke? Is it 200 baht to play, which is about $6.60 US dollar, is I think what it is to play. I should
is that a
get up
lot?
on the numbers.
Is that a lot for a local?
For a local, and there's local pricing and memberships and so on and so forth. For a straight up,
I know what $6 is to us, but 200 baht to them might be different based on.
Yeah, it's certainly depending on your financial situation. There, it could be a lot. It could be. Of course, there's special provisions and things that are taken into account.
Sure.
And I know, for instance, right now where Luke's running it so that is it for the whole month? Anyone that lives in Thailand that is a Thai national can come play for free. And just completely wide open if you're from there. So Luke's giving some more information on the board that I should have at my fingertips. It's 300 baht, which is about $8.50 per day. Kids are half price. Otherwise, $30 a month or $90 a year. And 300 baht is the one-time price, mostly for tourists. So again, most of the people that are traveling there, especially stumbling upon disc golf, the 300 baht is not of major significance to put forth.
Okay.
So that's what's taking place there. Luke, you guys are hearing me say it here and now, like there's agreements and provisions and everything else, but at the end of the day, a whole lot of love and trust in Luke Butch over there on Thailand. So don't F things up. No, there's just a whole lot of love and trust in what Luke has been doing throughout the last decade, and then also how we're going to continue to push things forward, moving forward. And I said it earlier, Luke's kind of an old school guy like you and I, has been around for quite some time, knows a lot of the old school players mentality, and then also takes in the game and still keeps up to date with what's going on around the country and around the world. But kind of has some of those deep rooted old school.
That's awesome. I'm happy for you, Terry. I'm glad that this is a new venture for you, something out of your normal comfort zone.
Yeah,
which is great.
I'll be totally honest that I'm not going to be clearly hands-on day to day. There's only so much I'm going to be doing. They're almost, I think they're exactly 12 hours away in terms of time zones. And
so your normal time is their day. Like that's
some of that does work out. Some of the communication can work out, but hopefully what this means though is I can also continue to shine more light, not only just on this specific course that we're part of, but just all of the entire Southeast Asia region and what others have been doing in Singapore and Malaysia and all of these other surrounding countries. We talked about Owen Scoggins, who was visiting in Laos last year, not too far from coming over to be part of the overall Southeast Asia tour, if that's something that interested her as someone who might be going that area anyway. There's just so many opportunities, and the fact that I've had the honor of then also being in Taiwan for the Asia Open a number of years ago, and some of these other events, just that entire area, I'm here for it, and I want to do whatever I can. One of the really cool things that that Luke's been already working on that we want to continue is either used or new, getting discs over there that we're just handing to the schools and getting disc golf introduced to the schools and to school-age children Of course, we just want to introduce it to literally anyone, but we all know that getting involved with the schools is huge. So I do want to bring up a few other quick points to that, which is as of right now, I'm going to apply a little more pressure on them. As of right now, we also think that Latitude 64 is the front runner in wanting to be a title sponsor. They didn't know about this entire development coming into it.
Title sponsor of the upcoming Samui Swine
title
event.
sponsor of the upcoming Samui Swine. That's to take place in the early part of February. So that is being worked on, where they too have talked about making a significant donation that would go right to the schools in terms of getting disc to them. It's funny how much you and I have a hard time relating to it. Money isn't money's always great, but money isn't what we need. We need baskets, we need discs, we need bags, we need the physical items there. And due to some tariffs and some other challenges, getting discs onto the island can actually be a little bit of a hurdle because there's some crazy taxing challenges. But getting actual discs onto the island and making them available is a legitimate obstacle that we're all working to overcome. So it's awesome. I'm just honored, and I feel like, yes, it was a significant amount of money, but I'd look at it truly as an investment into that region, that area, and continuing to grow the sport, and then discover some of these new players and invite the rest of the world to Samui to see what disc golf is all about. I think it's just an experience you'll never forget. There's a reason you hear me going on and on and on for hours and hours about it, and you see Philo going back a handful of times. You've seen Nico and Sarah Holcomb and Paige Pierce and Weston Isaacs and Nate Perkins and James Conrad, Devin Owens, Coling, Waisaki. All those people have been there, and then the likes of Simon and others that all say, yeah, I want to get there. Matteo trying to find a way to get there. It is this insane experience, and it's the disc golf, but it's so much culture, and it's such an incredible just all-around package. And the last point on that is, because of the relationship with the house and the land and the property and the rental and all this other stuff, there already is, and there will continue to be a rental unit right there on site. So you can literally be right at the course, 100 feet or 30 some meters from T1, and you can be renting out that particular place as an Airbnb at a very reasonable rate. You can be renting that out throughout different parts of the year and stay right there on site as well. So that will also be an option among the million other very cost-efficient options. But if you want to really have the experience, to say you're staying at the disc golf course where you can just open up the window and see half the holes on the course and experience Samui. Scott Stokely, Shasta Chris this last year. If you need any more stories from Scott Stokely, you know that he's always going to give you one. It's absolutely incredible. So I think that's everything on that. I appreciate the question there. Mike says, yes, Stokely documented how a $20 disc is still $20 over there, which is about half the week's wages locally besides any tariffs. Yeah, the disc that, or maybe just a little below that. So it is a challenge to get stuff onto the island in terms of the discs. Unfortunately, because it's expensive specifically to locals that aren't affluent with bot, it does feel like it can be expensive, and you can't just call up a manufacturer and be like, hey, it's gonna be really expensive when it gets there. Can you give me give us a discount? I mean, it still costs them the same to make it, but that's why we're looking for basic level plastic. And then when it comes to the kids and some of the groups to introduce it to, we're looking for used or X outs or whatever that can just be given away, that people are happily saying, hey, I no longer need those. Let's just give those away.
And Luke comes on and says that $20 a day is not a week's wage. It's more like a good day's wage, but that's still relatively expensive for someone to pay an entire day's wage for a disc. So like you said, if you can help
offset some of those or get discs into locals' hands and whatnot, it's Pretty
Stay
amazing.
tuned. I'm sure Terry will have more coming from all of this.
Yeah, there you have it. So we will come up with some kind of, I'll show them off again. Here's a couple of the discs that just immediately got made up, and we're going to be working with a number of manufacturers, but we're going to come up with some options. If you want to be a friend or a supporter and you want to get a disc and a sticker and a mini or something like that, I'm going to have some options available on my website where you can continue to support it. And we're going to have options to become basically a year-long sponsor by having your wrap on a basket or having a flag or a flanner at the course. That would be on display essentially year-round for everyone to see, not just for the tournament. Those are all going to be options as well. So thank you, and let's see where this thing can go from here.
Well, if you want to win one of those discs, you go to patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. Let's give away that disc right now, Terry.
Let's do it.
We have 133 people eligible for our giveaway tonight. We're going to give away your choice of one of those discs, and
yes,
we'll reach out. Terry will reach out to you and probably get a better idea of what it is. So, Terry,
I'll send you pictures of the 4 discs. You tell me which one you prefer, and that's the one that I'll send out to you.
What should we draw? 133. What number should we pick?
I've been to Thailand 3 times.
All right, we'll do it the third one. The
third number drawn
not
is who
19,
will have the choice.
Not 94, but our third and final number is 51. I sorted them by email address tonight. So if I go to 51, I scroll down just a little bit. That's going to be Jeff Hungerford.
Unbelievable. Very nice.
Jeff Hungerford. Congratulations, Jeff. Good friend of our show. And PDGA.
Yes, and Jeff, I believe, is
he still on the PDGA?
Possibly on the PDGA board. I don't know. I don't think there's any conflict of interest. Jeff notched his 100th PDGA win
at the Samui.
At the Samui Swine.
I thought I remembered something like that.
How damn fitting. That's incredible. Thank you, Jeff, right near Gordon and in between Gordon and Tyler in terms of the names there. So, Jeff, awesome. Well, I'll give you your options and then get something sent out to you. Jeff did reply at one point and said, I may even try to get back there this year in hearing the news today. So
that's pretty cool.
Somehow it seems beautifully fitting that Jeff takes it down. So thank you to Jeff Hungerford. PDGA 688?
I don't know. It's not my thing. That's your thing. You remember PDGA numbers, not me, Terry.
Yes, I'm right. PDGA 688, Jeff Hungerford. Damn, that was a good poll, Miller. Thank you. I'll pat myself on the back for that. Anyway, all right. Luke also chiming in. Yeah, a 2-bedroom right there on site for just $40 a night. I don't know how you can really complain about that. And then play some disc golf. Sounds perfect. Just a few minutes from the ocean. Golf.
It sounds like it's a few minutes from the ocean in almost any direction.
It really is. And I've said this before. If you're not making the most and you're not putting a few hundred kilometers on your moped/scooter for the week, you also are not doing Thailand right. So bring a pair of glasses, protective glasses, and you'll get a helmet when you get there, and then get on a scooter, which will cost you $6 a day, and ride till you can't ride any longer. Because if you're not disc golfing, you should be out there on a scooter somewhere. It's that's worth the trip alone. I've said that for a few years. And somehow I haven't wiped out. You'd be impressed.
Not there. You have wiped out on
there.
scooters, but not particularly there. Not yet, Terry. You're still a young man.
Yes.
Who can definitely
just a spry young age of 45-ish.
So do we have anything else, Terry?
I was just going to quickly say, and not to entirely ultimately fully belabor the entire conversation, but when I did put the teaser out there yesterday, I got to say thank you to some of the creative. When I said I've got kind of this big announcement.
What the big news was?
There was, I'm flattered that a number of you said Euro Tour announcer. Or being part of the Euro Tour in a more larger capacity from a commentary side?
That was my guess, because my wife asked me. She's like, she's like, I saw Terry made a post. She's like, what? He's like, what's his deal? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know, because I forgot to ask him about it last week after the show, and I just haven't spoken much with him. And I said, he talked about more international travel. I said, so there's a chance that it's something to do with the with the Disc Golf Euro Tour, the new unified European tour.
Mm-hmm.
I said he could be the American announcer for that, and maybe he's going overseas for that for an extra couple weeks. I said that would be my first bet. I said, but other than that, maybe he's going to talking about a new tour in Europe, because I know he's friends with the Croatian people that do a lot of the Croatia disc golf. I said that's always a possibility.
Yeah, a couple others running for the PDGA board. I keep thinking that'll happen someday, but that's not on the top of my list right now. Maybe I'll do that. Greg, who goes to Samui every year and has already booked his tickets, said moving to Thailand for 4 weeks this upcoming winter. He had no idea it was coming. And you're close. I'll be there for about 3 weeks between Malaysia and Samui. So we'll see you there, Greg. Curling, Olympic curling. Nope, not quite. A lot of commentator questions, people asking if I was going to be then moving maybe to somewhere else in the country. Not the case. Out to Bend, Oregon, for instance. Not the case. Disc Golf Masters Tour is going to get some live coverage. That was a solid.
That's a solid guess
at the time. That was very solid there, Tom McManus. I'm not sure where that stands in terms of what coverage, but I'm guessing you're going to see more of it for sure there. Retiring, I don't know what retiring would ever even look like. Jessica Weiss's mother said crypto deal.
Crypto deal. That's the last thing.
That will not be for me. Covering more European events. Taking a role with House of Disc. Somebody said that. Somebody said ABC Sports, and someone also said full-time employee at Innova. Those were all thrown out there. A merger with more disc golf media. I said I said they're too nice for me. They got too many good things going on. So, lots of some of those. Like I said, some were truly funny, and a few of them were quite flattering. I'm going to go to the Lone Star Ranger team, which was a topic of conversation recently. Possibly get sponsored. A lot of people thought I might actually go out and play. That definitely would not be helping anyone in any capacity. So, Somebody said you officially committing to never again riding a two-wheel self-propelled vehicle.
That's incorrect, because you're going to be riding a lot of one in Thailand.
That's exactly what I told him. So, thank you so much to all the great suggestions. And it actually, a few of you gave me some ideas. Like, I wonder if I could do that maybe someday. So I certainly appreciate it. Nate Heinold's mom asked if I'm going to move into her hometown. I said, Nate Sweetie Pie, as she calls him, might not like that.
Probably not.
So no, I won't be there. But nonetheless, thank you guys. Congratulations. I'm going to switch gears real abruptly.
Okay.
Congrats. Paul Ulibarri and Sarah Wysocki married on Sunday.
Merging of the houses. It's like a Game of Thrones thing. You've got the Wysockis and the Ulibarris, both powerhouses in the disc golf community.
Ricky Wysocki, let me repeat that. Ricky Wysocki,
his sister, Sarah Wysocki,
has married Paul Ulibarri. So
brother
Ricky,
of
Pete Ulibarri.
Yes.
The famous Pete.
The famous Pete Ulibarri.
Who we mentioned just last week on the show.
I'm just saying,
And I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully this weekend. But yes, Ricky and Paul, that makes them brother-in-laws.
It does.
So congratulations. Again, they were married on Sunday.
I'm kind of surprised Ricky let that schlub in the family. It's like, how many majors do you have? Oh, sorry, Sarah. We're shooting for at least one. So here are your options. You can marry Isaac Robinson. You can marry Gannon Burr. Not Paul Ulibarri.
Ouch. Well, nonetheless.
Are those the only two unmarried major winners?
Oh, jeez.
Has it just hit me?
I mean, Philo's not technically married yet, and he did win a Masters major this year.
He's a little,
we're stretching on a few accounts there, but unmarried major winners. Yeah, I guess I'd have to go through the list. Sarah Hokum's not married.
True. I was thinking MPO, particularly for this instance, but
Katrina Allen is not married.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
But yeah, I guess that could be a funny list to then possibly go through.
Statmando, where are you on this?
Yeah, shit, where's that stat? Speaking of stats, I believe Schwebby picked up another win, as Wade has just referenced on the board. Schwebby got another win this weekend, 4,000,009, I think is the number. So congrats to him. And then Wade, I will follow up. Yes, Wade had some surgery that he has announced to the world, and we wish you nothing but the best recovery and hope
Definitely,
you're doing well.
Wade.
Also asking me the other day, when are we going to see some post-production coverage coming out? You guys know now's the time to shine. Now that I've bought this island of disc golf, now's the time to get some post-production.
Private island.
The Las Vegas Challenge is fully edited. Now I just need to put down the commentary. I got that entirely edited, all 3 rounds of that. This weekend, I'm heading to the Phoenix Ladies Open, so going to give you probably 1 round of first round highlights, spreading the love around to a bunch of divisions, and then second round will be exclusively lead card FPO. That's going to happen. We got Chain Hawk coming up, and then I think I've got 1 or 2 other older events in the can that also can get released, some more local stuff and so on. So post-production world
starting to ramp
from
up.
my channel is now about to ramp up. Now that everyone else is taking it easy, now I'm going to try and deliver for a little while for you guys. So big Smashbox hug to you out there, my friend, and I hope you're doing well.
What else, Terry? What else is going on with your life?
With my life?
You just bought an island? What else?
Yes. It's running the tournament at the end of the month is super exciting. Again, it's near sold out, and just stressors of any kind, certainly
normal tournament stressors.
Yeah, they limit though once you're like officially sold out and everything's good to go.
You're saying Terry Miller sold out? Huh?
Yeah. Working on some branding. Quite honestly, I know I referenced it in the regular show. Smashbox now finally has some nice, sweet die cut stickers.
Those are nice. I'm gonna have to get a few of them.
And it's funny.
Put one on my laptop.
The work that goes into. Not from me, and a big shout out to Jeremy Herr for helping out here.
And this particular style, I wore that shirt to USCGC. I was walking around with it. I had more people stop me and be like, "Whoa, I love that shirt. Where can I get one?" And I was like, I don't have any. Those were Patreon exclusive shirts.
Yeah.
So we might have to bring that one out next year for a renewal and offer that up. I'll talk to Miles about that, because that's where I got that from.
Yeah, so doing some Samui branding, doing Disc Golf Guy merch branding, doing stuff for the Cold Turkey. All of those things have been kind of what's also been keeping me pretty busy. And as I said, big shout out to Jeremy, who helped with some graphic stuff. Also, Benjamin, my buddy, helping with some graphic stuff recently as well. So thank you to you guys. Like I said, Chain Hawk comes right after that in terms of right after the Thanksgiving event. And I think I might do a flex start of some kind, right around, when's the 31st? Isn't that like
the 31st
December
of December?
31st, like a chaining in the new year. The 31st is a Sunday. So doing a Sunday flex start of some kind is probably going to happen.
Could happen.
So those are some exciting things. And then, of course,
hey, Miles, shout out on the board. Good to see you. Glad you're tuning in.
There's Miles. Love you, buddy.
One of our favorites.
Is he? Yeah.
He is. Well, I don't know about you. He's one of my favorites.
I mean, I did talk to him on the way here, so
I don't talk to him nearly as much as I wish I did. Because him and I, if we were to talk, it'd probably be music talk. Him and I have very similar music tastes. He actually was in a band many years ago that opened for one of my favorite bands, so it's pretty fun. And I never knew that.
Really?
Yeah.
Who?
One of my favorite bands is The Jealous Sound. And my understanding is his band opened for them many years ago, which I never knew. So,
dang.
Come see us play next weekend.
If you think you're such a big fan of him, go down there and see him play next weekend.
I didn't say I was a fan of his band. I'm just kidding. I'm sure I would be, Miles, but no. Cool stuff.
One other thing that I touched on. Completely on a side personal level was my daughter wrapping up her volleyball this last weekend, me going to the volleyball banquet to watch all the various teams go through their individual awards. I went to a volleyball banquet as well. All that other stuff. And now my daughter is possibly looking into the idea of some tryouts for other clubs or other whatever in terms of volleyball. So it just starts over on a whole new level. And I think I may have touched on it in the last couple of weeks. Yes, my oldest daughter, Allison, has turned 15. So now she is completing a lot of the online lessons that are required so that then she could go in and get her temps. And then just like that, she'll be able to just start driving around. So that's all in my kind of like my back pocket world.
Trying to convince my son. I was trying to convince him to either join club volleyball or the swim team, as well as he's really interested in doing what he is in the robotics club. Hands down. In fact, he was just picked he's a freshman. He was picked for what they call the lean team, which is like these smaller teams that do very specific portions of each project build. And he is on the 3D development side. So he's doing like the drafting and stuff like that. He's taken a very good natural knack to that stuff. And I kept asking him, like, Fear's great. It's the name of the team is the Fear team, FEAR. I forget what it stands for. But it's great. But I keep thinking, I'm like, I'd like you to be more active as well. I'm like, well, maybe you can join swim. And he's like, nope. It's happening mostly at the same time. He's like, I'd have to miss
plan that one.
I'd have to miss Fear classes or Fear club. I was like, all right, well, maybe you can do club volleyball and be more casual. He's like, nope. And club volleyball, my understanding in the Milwaukee area is very difficult to get on. Like, you have to be a very, very solid player to get on some of the better club teams. Not that he couldn't be on one of the lower level teams, but he had no interest in that either. So now I think I'm going to force him to do a
yard raking. 24 hours a day.
Well, yeah, my yard needs it right now. But 3 times a week they do a fitness after school, like a kind of physical working out, more or less. And so some of his buddies that are on the volleyball team are going to be doing that, and he would only be able to do it 2 days a week because of the robotics. But I'm going to force him to do that instead. So. It's a never-ending fight.
We need to find out that if Fear, the acronym it doesn't start with the F word, then I'm going to be disappointed for his high school robotics club. That F better be the F word. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Yeah, I think that was largely it for what I saw in the news. We're now getting to a point. I'm on the fringe of caring. We're clearly getting to a point where it feels like some podcasts are getting punchy with other podcasts.
What?
And if we've ever done that, it's always been in jest, like completely, like when we've used to rip on the Answer Man or the Nick and Matt show. There's like
the Nick and who?
Exactly. There's never been any thread of sincerity under any of those kind of comments, but it feels like maybe if I understand it, again, I've got enough of my own drama to like then go seek out some of the other podcast drama, but it feels like there's some of that has maybe bubbled and or is becoming a conversation piece. Good for them is what I can say to that. I'm going to do my best to not worry about it or concern myself. I just hear on the fringe that it's happening. It's kind of always like we see and hear the news and the disc golf news, and you may get it from Reddit and Discord. I may see it on Instagram or Facebook, maybe YouTube or whatever. And at a certain point, it's like, I don't need to go search for more. And if it's not there right in front of my face, I'm not going to worry. Even when it is, sometimes I don't worry about it. But that's what I've gathered, at least from the fringe.
I mean, you can, if you want to drum up a little bit of drama and maybe a little bit of interest, you always you go against somebody else. That's how it always works. That's the nature of it, which I mean, which is maybe why our podcast has never exploded in popularity. We've never done that type of stuff. We've never purposefully in general like called out another podcast in for real.
Yeah,
you know,
in a serious capacity.
In a serious capacity.
Or intentionally like led with a hot take. Now, there's clearly takes we've had that people will disagree with, and I'm not suggesting everybody should be agreeing with everybody, but that's not necessarily been, like I said, our nature of like, here's the hottest take in the world, and I'm looking to incite
I think
a massive response.
9 times out of 10, the quote-unquote hot takes that people have, they don't even really believe. Because if they're that hot, the odds are in your head you're thinking like, like, that's probably not true, or I probably don't really believe that. Like, to me, that's how most hot takes tend to be, and so. And yeah, so we've just never been that type of channel. We've never been that type of podcast.
Kind of sidetracking back to podcast live stuff. Why doesn't my internet work all the time?
At home?
House? Yeah.
I don't know, Terry. You are hardwired in.
Not all the time.
Okay,
but
well,
I have been. And I feel like it's still struggled there.
Step 1, hardwire. Step 2, get good internet.
I've got good internet.
Get good, GITGUD. Get good.
Get good.
Get good.
Oh yeah. We'll have that talk later. We'll continue that. Miles does bring up a good point. He's suggesting that we call out Hannah Macbeth and and her podcast. I would just want to know,
the Party podcast.
Yeah, is that still going on, or is she taking a break because she's having a kid? I don't really know.
It is still going on. They just had an episode. It's a part 1 of 2 with Nick and Matt. It's a little crossover episode. So I have not seen part 2, I believe. I listened to some of part 1, but I'm not going to lie, and Anna knows I'm a big fan of the Party podcast. I only got through about half this episode before I just kind of wrote it off, just because it's more or less a summary of the year. It is talking more about what had happened and Nick and Matt's take on what had happened, of which it wasn't my cup of tea particularly. Like I just didn't need
like a cup of party.
Not my cup of party. Yeah. But in general, I like the Party podcast, and it is still going, even though Christine Jennings has been overseas for the last couple of weeks.
And that was kind of my point is, obviously, with
and
Christine traveling and Hannah having a kid.
No, Paul should be taking care of that kid now. Hannah carried it for 9 months. It's Paul's turn.
Exactly.
9 months, Paul. Deal with it.
That's how that works. I didn't get a plug in here, but we'll probably be talking about the conclusion of it come next week. So, yeah, the Phoenix Ladies Open, the 17th annual Phoenix Ladies Open, presented by the law offices of Paul J. Sacco, taking place this weekend. I'm excited to go out there come Thursday, Friday, and partake in the filming of it. There's 126 competitors registered for this weekend. So we talk about it all the time. How do you get more women? How do you introduce your wife, girlfriend, fiance, side piece, whatever? How do you get them in? How do you get them involved? Can I bring my wife
and my side piece as a doubles?
As long as they play in different divisions. I'd keep them in different divisions.
Oh.
Just to be safe.
Anyway, it would have to be like pro and am. I would hope. I don't want like masters and juniors. That's weird, Terry.
You should be dating a junior.
That's what I'm saying. That's why you can't do that.
Juniors only play one round here. I don't want you dating one, but they do only play one round and then they're done. So that maybe could help alleviate some interaction. But
this conversation took a very awkward turn.
Well, there are 19-year-olds.
Yes,
anyway.
that's exactly.
Aside from all that, but no, if you do want to know how to introduce women to a competitive format that maybe is a little bit more inviting, this event spoils the heck out of the women, and it's awesome. They have done such an incredible job throughout the years. I've seen a number of different TDs all passing the torch and helping the next TD. It's been incredible. I am honored to be out there and have a part of this event, but that's taking place. There's currently 126 women registered for the event. And if I do a real quick look, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think I just counted about 16 different divisions represented in all of those players. So absolutely awesome to see. And I am excited to be out there for this weekend. So I wanted to throw that in there. This is an event I've supported in being not only just doing the filming of it, but then also helping amplify it wherever I can. And that's to be said of all the women's exclusive tournaments. And this one is no different. So looking forward to seeing you guys all out there this upcoming weekend. All right. I swear, Terry, you would play a non-sanctioned event over a tier. I think that's some talk relative to some of the other drama.
Yeah, the tour life stuff.
There is a course in our area. This is also, whatever. There's a course in our area that I'm apparently going to get a chance to go play. That's currently listed as a private course, and I'll report back to you on how that's going to go. Well, speaking of our area, where I'm going to also side note to this, lots of conversation about the Watt brothers playing disc golf We saw it on every social media.
I forgot to comment on that and beg for attention.
Yeah, so I'm just saying the maybe the coolest tie for us specifically
is that the Watts grew up in the city you live in.
Yes.
Literally, Pewaukee. Not to dox you, but you live in Pewaukee.
And it's not very many people. Went to the same high school, I believe, as my daughter or my two children go to. Whether that's going to get me any closer to playing with them, we know a few other NFL players that already play, so on and so forth. Maybe there'll be a time I get to get out and play with them, but
so I saw someone online.
It's a timestamp. It's kind of cool.
Post it like, this is huge for the sport, and I'm like, and I didn't post anything because I kept myself, and I thought, no, it's not. It's nothing. It's literally a big nothing burger. It's two guys who happen to be relatively big in a sport out enjoying themselves. It's not going to go anywhere. There's not going to be anything. Odds are there's a good chance that he never posts about disc golf again.
Would you change your mind at all if next year he had the Watt Brothers Disc Golf Invitational and $100,000 was donated?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Then but you're saying just him.
Just this in general.
That he played.
Him making a post that he's playing. Now, my thought was, and I don't know what the full status of the future is for the. We've seen a celebrity pro-am in the past where we saw.
Oh, I've got some tea on that I can't spell.
I know you do, and I have to a little bit too. I kind of know a little bit, but I'm going to pretend like I don't. I don't know what's going on with the celebrity pro-am event. But we have seen a Packer player in the past play. Ben Askren, who lives out in Delafield.
Whoa.
Doxing.
Don't throw the D word around.
Which is near Pewaukee. You would think that if someone could get a hold of like a JJ or a TJ Watt, if they were interested in playing, for instance, it would be Ben Askren to reach out and be like, hey, if you're interested in playing, if you're more than just like, I'm going to go out for a casual round with my bro, if you're interested, that would be the place to get him in. And I don't even know how big that would be in general. But there are, and now that I don't see, maybe I would say TJ playing would be a stretch just because he's still in the NFL and so busy. JJ Watt is now retired and is invested in soccer team and has a commentating gig, I think, on CBS. But so if something like that were to evolve, that's a little different. But I don't think that in the past the celebrity pro-am has been people who have been a little more serious about disc golf. Celebrities who take the sport a little more seriously than just, hey, we're going to go casually and play.
Sure.
So,
yeah,
but
that's
who
a good
knows?
question. Who knows?
Something like that could happen.
If they quote unquote get bit by the disc golf bug, the way a lot of others do,
sure.
That could be one early round that turns into just one of 30 he plays in the next 60 days. And the next thing you know, and clearly when you're of that status, everyone's ready to jump on you and help you out and
provide discs.
Yeah, exactly. Discs and then a little bit of instruction and so on and so forth. So I guess we'll see how it all unfolds. But yeah. Anyway, again, is it cool? Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy that other people are playing this
and
sport.
Then a little bit of a coinkydink that they, were born in the same city that I currently live in, which happens to be a suburb of the Milwaukee area. That's my slightly personal tie to it, but that's about it. Wade says, Chef Andrew Zimmerman out there actually throwing was cool. Yeah, and Chef's been playing for 25 or 30 years.
Yeah, he's a long-time player.
He's been playing for a long time. And we've seen, obviously...
Dylan Cease.
Yeah, Cease and Chase has been playing, I think, a little bit more. Casey DeSmith of the Penguins plays all the time and is really good.
Yeah, he's really good.
As well. So, yeah, some of those guys take it a little bit more seriously than others.
If we do get another celebrity pro-am, we have to invite Jeremy London, actor who posts all the time on Twitter about disc golf, is really into it. Him and Emac go back and forth all the time. He's the actor from the movie Mallrats and other movies, but that's probably his most famous movie. He's heavy into the sport these days, and I think it would be a shame not to put that invitation out to someone like him to come and play. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Like I don't see any celebrity posting disc golf stuff as much as him. Even someone like Dylan Cease, who is invested in the sport literally now, isn't posting as much as like Jeremy London is. So, you got to look what you got to look for. And I think it's something he would probably get into and enjoy.
Okay. I like it.
Maybe another weekend I'll go off on my rant about how I saw people saying like, when real athletes get into our sport, they'll be able to throw far. It'll knock all of our top pros off, is what I was hearing. Like if J.J. Watt could just learn how to throw, he'd be throwing 600 feet in weeks, because he's a real athlete as opposed to what our guys are now. But another week I'll go off on that rant that I think people are idiots.
Okay. I don't know that I have a lot more, unless the board has anything else that we're going to close the shop here in a moment. If the board doesn't come up with something else that they need us to further divulge or talk about, if that's not the case, then it sounds like we could be wrapping up.
Wrap it up.
Sounds like we had a little bit of everything tonight. So thank you guys. Thank you again personally. There's so much love and support. I got a lot of individual messages for people that were happy. I had a number of messages from people literally from around the world that have been to Samui that are also excited that we're keeping things moving forward. And that means even more because they've been there, they've experienced it, and they know how special it is to all of us. And I literally got messages from China, from Australia, from New Zealand, another part of Australia, just all over the world today. And so thank you guys. And we're going to do our best to keep things moving forward in a good way. Thank you, Wade, for that. We appreciate it. All right, folks, that is it. This has been SmashBoxxTV's podcast 479's after show. Thank you to Danny Voss, who joined us in the regular show. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters and anyone that just tunes in and week out, whether you're watching live on the YouTubes or you've downloaded it and you're consuming it there. Please give it a 5-star review on whatever your podcast app is, and we appreciate all the love and support. We'll see you next week for episode 480. You step inside the Smashbox.